must be civil and it must be germane, which means relevant to the item of business currently before us. We set debate times by a total number of minutes for speeches in favor and against. So if debate time is set at 6 minutes, that means 3 minutes for speeches for and 3 minutes for speeches against. Neutral items like a point of order or subsidiary motions come out equally from both sides. As we move through the meeting and speakers are recognized and items of business are disposed of, we will be archiving your request to speak. When your request has been archived, you'll see a response from the moderator indicating that's happened. If you submit a request to speak and you later change your mind, you can select retract a request and use the text field to indicate which request you're retracting. You don't need to retract a request that has already been archived. In addition, we'll be archiving items as they're no longer relevant. So if you're wanting to postpone indefinitely and somebody else makes that motion, we'll take care of archiving your request for you. Sometimes motions require a second. We'll be using the raise hand function in the Zoom to second motions. You can raise your hand as soon as the motion is made, and I'll also make sure to ask if there's a second if there haven't been any. In the same way, sometimes I will ask for unanimous consent of the body to do something rather than needing to take a vote. This sounds like me saying, is there any objection to? And if you wish to object, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom. When it comes time to vote, the vote will automatically appear on your screen. And when that vote appears on your screen, you will select how you wish to vote. You can change your vote just by clicking the other option, and you can completely cancel your vote by clicking cancel. Okay, folks, we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jessie Lipp. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the presiding officer with this meeting. I'm calling to order the third main meeting of the 2025 WSFS Business Meeting at 9:01 a.m. Pacific. Before we began, we were looping a video of my introductory remarks from the July 4th session, so I'm going to be skipping over most of that and breezing through the rest today in order to save us some time. If you've not been able to attend one of the previous meetings, I'm sorry that I'm not able to give the same kind of introduction to how things work that I've been able to do at the first two meetings, but we are very pressed for time. All the information in my usual introductory spiel is in the documentation. So, business meeting staff, we have them. They're great. Their names are up on the screen. Join the Discord. There's a help channel. The captioning link from 3Play is on the homepage of the Lumi platform, and we also have auto captions available in the Zoom. We have a survey, and no slide for that, Warren. In the Documents tab, there is a link to a survey about the virtual business meeting. This survey will be open for 2 weeks, and we would really appreciate any thoughts about the meeting that you are willing to share with us. Please make sure to test your microphone before you are recognized to speak. If you're having tech difficulties and not able to speak, we will move on to the next person. So we are going to get started with today's test vote. And today's test vote will be, I think you can go ahead and stop the screen share for now, Warren. Today's test vote will be dragons or spaceships. And so we can go ahead and get that open. And while you all vote, as a reminder, in general, I am closing votes quickly only when the remaining votes, because I can see the incoming votes as they come in, so only when the remaining votes would not be enough to change the results am I closing the vote quickly. If the vote is at all close, which this one is, I will leave the vote open for longer. But this is also a vote that doesn't matter, so I'm not going to leave it open for as long as I would. And we can go ahead and close the vote. Dang it, somebody snuck in at the last minute. So with 61, we have 61 folks who prefer dragons and 60 people who prefer spaceships. It was almost 60-60. Okay. So, given that, so first, results of elections. And so we do have a slide for this. So at the last meeting, we balloted for the Mark Protection Committee and the Trial Committee, and we have the results of those elections. And then for the trial committee, Dr. Science, Chris Snyder, Kat Corbetti, Espana Sheriff, and Ian Stockdale were elected. Normally at this point, I would entertain a motion to thank the tellers and destroy the ballots, but I was the teller and there are no ballots to destroy. So instead, I will just say that anyone who wants a spreadsheet that can instantly calculate IRV results for elections up to 15 candidates should DM me, and I'll send you my fancy spreadsheet. As a reminder, at the previous session, we enacted a special procedural rule that any motion requiring a second, other than those that have already been proposed in our agenda, will require 3 seconds. And so that will still be in effect moving forward. So our first item that we are going to deal with today is E.9, cleaning up the art categories. This can be found on page 30 of your agenda. We have already set debate time for this item at 8 minutes at the previous meeting. And so anyone wishing to speak on E.9 can go ahead and use the request to speak pool to do so. And I'm going to recognize Terry Ash for a speech in favor.
Hello, my name is Terry Ash. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the maker of this motion. It is, sorry, in the last several years, it has become very, very obvious that the art categories that we had, which were essentially publishing categories, no longer apply to the state of the SFF art world as it exists today. We have lots of people making money from their art that are not being put on book covers, and thus the limiting of the professional category to you got put on a book cover is deeply unfair to those of us who work to sell our art. In addition, the category of fan artist is so wide as to be effectively meaningless. Thus, the point of this motion is to basically say, if you sell it, you are a professional. If you give it away, you are a fan. And to return the concept, not return, to realign the idea of fan artist to be more in line with fan writer and other fan activities. I have spoken at length about this motion in previous meetings, and I think you all know where I stand.
Mixed Chair, you've been on mute.
Thank you. I forgot that I got muted. Okay, sorry. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech against, and then I will recognize Laura Miller for a speech against after that if we don't have another speech in favor come up. Ron Oakes.
Okay, I have to speak against this as somebody who has in the past, although not terribly recently, done very low volume and low cost art that I have shared and sold through art shows at conventions. The way this is written, that would make me eligible, although very unlikely to have been even nominated, certainly not become a finalist as best professional artist. And I think that's highly unfair for somebody who puts 1, 2, 5 works in one art show that are clearly of a fanish nature. This limits somebody who makes a few pieces a year that they sell in art shows. This means that, makes them a professional artist along with, somebody who makes their living doing art, somebody who puts their arts on book covers, sells them in magazines, makes jewelry for a living, makes a significant fraction of their living, as opposed to me, who sold the art for close to the minimum bid price, sold it for enough to cover the costs of printing and matting the art. That I did it for the joy of it. I did it for the same reason I would do fan writing, the same reason I would do if I submitted it to a fanzine. I was doing it as fanish activity, not to make money. That made me a fan artist. And the way this is written, I think it needs to be sent back, rewritten to look at really when is a professional and when is it fanish activity, and it's not simply making money. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. So that was a speech against. I'm going to recognize Kate Secor for a speech in favor, and then Laura Miller for a speech against. Kate Secor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. While I understand the concerns of very small volume producers of art, I'm not convinced that personal edge and corner cases are necessarily a good argument for preventing these categories from recognizing the entire world of art that's being produced that isn't, book covers, right? There are 3D media artists, there are people producing online art, there are graphic designers, there are all kinds of people working on this field who are producing amazingly good art and who just aren't capable of being recognized in this category. The way these categories are scoped is outdated and we need to fix it. Thank you, Mixed Chair.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. And so I'm now going to recognize Laura Miller for a speech against, and then Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor. Laura Miller?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Laura Miller. My pronouns are she, her. And I was actually, when this was passed at the first passage last year, I thought all these discussion on this I was for this. However, when I went to participate in the consultative vote that was held on this, I read the arguments there, and then I read the discussion on the upcoming new business for F22, and I was convinced that that's a better option, and I would like to go ahead and defeat this and possibly look at F22 instead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against, and so I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor, and then David Guan for a motion. Cliff Dunn?
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Mixed Chair, the bottom line I see here is that, first of all, the categories are misaligned with the current reality. The edge cases that have been mentioned, look, the Hugo admins over the last decade or so have made it very clear they don't want to make any subjective judgments. We don't want to be asking people for tax forms and so on and so forth. And so this is the best I think we can do in terms of drawing an objective line. We have spent basically as long as I have been in fandom, we have been bashing this this question into the wall, and I honestly think this is reasonable. To one of the speakers before me, he would still be eligible in fan if he had work he hadn't sold. He would also be eligible in professional artist, because you'll note that somebody can have two bodies of work, one fan, one pro. This will resolve the problem. This will avoid there being a weird gap between the two, since there have been issues on occasion with artists ending up with work that is neither fan nor pro. And I think this will enable us to move on from what has been a very long and exhausting debate and stop wasting the meeting's time revisiting this every other year. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.9, and so I'm going to recognize David Guan for a motion.
Yes, I would like to move that we move this to committee for the reason that this begins to open a very large can of worms, because the same general logic can also be applied to pro author and fan author, with a lot of the vanity publishing at the moment and being able to essentially just dump
David,
stuff
one
out to a
moment,
website.
because you're getting into debate. So first, okay, so the motion has been made to refer to committee. Is there a second, or 3 seconds rather? If you wish to second the motion, please raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, and I do see multiple seconds coming in, so the motion has been seconded. So the motion has been made to refer E.9 to committee. David, is this a committee that you would be willing to chair?
If need be, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and appoint, so if the motion to refer passes, I would go ahead and appoint you as chair, at least for the purpose of constructing the committee until it first meets. And Terry Ash and either, I believe, Kate Secor or Kevin Sawney would automatically be on the committee as well, per our standing rules. So the motion to refer has been moved and seconded. Olaf, how much time do we have remaining on E.9?
We have 1 minute and 10 seconds. However, that is entirely for against.
Okay, so for the motion to refer, we'll go ahead and just split 1 minute evenly for each side. And this is if we come back to E.9, then basically all of this time will be coming out of time against. So David, do you wish to speak further to your motion to refer to committee? And we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool moderators.
No, I do not believe I need to, since I mentioned that in the initial motion.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So anybody wishing to speak to the motion to refer can go ahead and submit that in the queue. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech against the motion to refer.
Perry Ann Lurie, she, her. This has already been to committee multiple times, and we have already had a consultative vote. I see no reason to just not vote on it now.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. I still don't see anyone wishing to speak in favor of the motion to refer to committee. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize Rafe Richards for a motion, or sorry, not a motion, a speech against referring to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rafe Richards, pronouns he, him. I'll merely say briefly that this has been through committees. This has been through so very many business meetings over the years. It is a miracle that this actually managed to get through its first vote last year. So no, this should absolutely not go back to committee. We've got something that is possibly as good a proposal for this as we've ever seen at a business meeting.
Let's
just vote on it.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech against, and we are out of time. So we're
out of time for speeches against.
Yes, sorry, we're out of time for speeches against. We don't have anyone wishing to speak in favor. So we have nobody wishing to speak in favor. I have 10 people wishing to speak against in the queue, and nobody else wishing to speak on the motion to refer. I do have a parliamentary inquiry about the motion to refer, since it's a ratification. And so there is nothing in our rules that prohibits, the preliminary business meeting would not be allowed to refer a ratification to committee, but there is nothing in our rules that prevents an item up for ratification from being referred to committee. And I don't remember the details, but I know when we were looking back, we did find at least one case of that having happened previously. So since time against the motion to refer has expired, and there is nobody wishing to speak against, we will go ahead, in favor, we will go ahead and move to a vote. And so we will be voting on the motion to refer E.9 to committee, and we can go ahead and open that vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the poll. With 26 in favor and 92 against, the motion to refer to committee fails. And so we are back to E.9. And I believe we have about 30 seconds of time left for speeches against. Is that correct, Olav?
That is correct.
Okay. And we are out of time in favor of E.9. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Tammy Coxon for a speech against. And if Tammy is very brief, I will then recognize Sharon Spartsky for a speech against.
Hello, Tammy Coxon, she, her. We've been struggling to redefine this for decades. This is not the right solution. Someone who created artwork for the publications of a Worldcon and then sold the originals of that artwork or offered for sale those originals in the art show, even if they didn't sell, would not qualify as a fan artist. And that does not seem like what we want to do. Every fan artist I know says this is a bad proposal. I think we should strike it down and consider F-22 instead.
That is time.
Okay, thank you. So we are out of time on E.9. Okay, I do have a couple amendments that have come in. And so when we are out of time for debate, motions like amendments are still in order. They are simply not debatable. So I'm going to recognize, and just as this is not me saying you should do this, this is just a reminder that the motion to end debate also closes the making of subsidiary motions, like the motion to amend, just as a reminder. I'm going to recognize Frederick Coulter for a amendment.
Okay, Fred Coulter. In accounting, we have this wonderful phrase called de minimis. And basically it means if it's too small to worry about. What I'm suggesting is amending the first part to say other than de minimis payments.
So
I think that clears the edge cases.
Okay, so one moment, Frederick, so we're going to get that up on the screen. So you are moving to amend to insert or de minimis.
Other than de minimis payments.
Okay, other than de minimis payments, and you are wanting to insert that where?
Right where you're, right there. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow, you spelled it better than I did.
There you go. Well, I'm the accountant, but Warren's the lawyer. So between us, we can probably spell de minimis correctly. So, yep. Sorry, that was to my parliamentarian. Okay. So we do have a standing rule 5.4 that requires that amendments to ratifications be submitted by the new business deadline, or they require a 2/3 vote to take up. For those of you who are like, we didn't do that at the last meeting, you're correct. I forgot and was reminded after the meeting, but also the amendments to ratifications we had at the last meeting all passed by very substantial majorities. So, per our standing rules, if a amendment to a ratification has not been submitted in advance, we require a 2/3 vote of the body, which is neither debatable nor amendable, in order to take up the amendment. So this is not voting on the amendment. This is just voting whether or not we want to take this item up. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on whether to suspend the rules and take up the amendment to a item up for ratification. This requires a 2/3 vote. Going to leave the vote open for about 10 more seconds. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 74 in favor and 50 against. That is not a 2/3 majority, and so the motion does not pass. And so we will not be taking up this amendment, and so we are back to E.9. I do have a motion in the queue to extend debate time by 6 minutes. So Cliff Dunn has moved to extend debate time by 6 minutes. Do we have do we have 3 seconds for this? You can use the raise hand function in the Zoom to second a motion. Okay, I do see several seconds. Okay, so the motion to extend debate requires a 2/3 vote and is not debatable itself. So we can go ahead and open the vote on extending debate by 6 minutes. Might take the LumiTech a little bit to get that ready, but once they have, we will have the vote on whether to extend debate by 6 minutes, which does require a 2/3 majority. I'm going to give about 10 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. So with 34 in favor and 84 against, the motion to extend debate does not pass. Okay. Okay, I do still have a couple more amendments in the queue, so even though, or in the pool, so even though debate time has expired, these are still in order. So I'm going to recognize Alexia Habel.
I would like to split the best professional artist and the best fan artist into two different things to do an amendment to the Constitution for, because I feel that the definitions of the two are different.
Okay, so this is a motion to divide. So the proposed amendment has 3.3.13, 3.3.17, and 3.10.2. So I understand that you're wanting to split 0.13 and 0.17. Where are you wanting to stick the proposed 3.10.2 change in your motion to divide?
Something to be done after the first two are resolved.
Okay, so you're wanting to divide it into 3 questions to vote. Okay, so you're basically making a motion to consider by paragraph. Okay. So this requires, so the motion to divide requires a majority vote, except that I believe, yeah, last year I ruled that the motion to divide essentially functioned as a motion to amend, and so would require the same 2/3 vote to take up as any other amendment for an item up for ratification that was not submitted in advance. So once again, the motion has, well, I guess, sorry, first of all, let's see if there's seconds. Is there 3 seconds to dividing the question into 3 as shown on the screen? Okay, I do see seconds. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded and third and fourth to divide the question into 3 separate questions. Because this was not submitted in advance, it does require a 2/3 vote per our standing rules. And so we can go ahead and open up the vote on whether or not to take up this amendment. So once again, to be clear, or sorry, this division, this is not about whether to divide. This is just about whether or not we want to take up the question in the first place. So we can go ahead and open that vote. And this requires a 2/3 majority. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 34 in favor and 75 against. The motion to take up the division fails. And so we are back to E.9. I do have a motion in the pool to end debate. Debate time has expired, but the motion to end debate also ends the making of subsidiary motions. And I do see 3 seconds in the Zoom for that. So the motion to end debate is neither debatable nor amendable. And so we will move to an immediate vote on whether or not to end debate. And this does require a 2/3 vote. So we can go ahead and open up the vote on whether or not to end debate on E.9. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. As a reminder, I'm closing the vote quickly when the remaining votes are not enough to change the outcome. With 112 in favor and 8 against, the motion to end debate passes. And so we will move to a vote immediately on E.9. And so this is whether or not to adopt E.9, cleaning up the art categories. If this passes, this will be added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon. And so we can go ahead and open up the vote on ratification of E.9. Gonna leave it open for about 10 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 58 in favor and 73 against, E.9 fails, and so will not be added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon. Okay. I did want to say, I meant to say this at the beginning of my spiel and I forgot. So as outlined in the agenda, the meetings may go up to 15 minutes long or 15 minutes early. So I'm just going to tell you all right now, I expect today's meeting to go until 12:45 Pacific. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Tammy Coxon for a motion.
Hello, Tammy Coxon, she, her. I'd like to move to reconsider E.2. When E.2 was submitted, it did not include a full enumeration of changes. It turns out that when you follow the implementation instructions in the amendment, it introduces a significant number of ambiguities and unanticipated consequences. This includes stating that only supporting members may vote in the Hugos, meaning anyone with an attending membership would be excluded. That is the most significant change, but not the only one, and adopting E.2 would cause constitutional chaos. We must reconsider it.
Okay, thank you. So that is a motion to reconsider E.2. I already see several seconds. And so that has been moved and seconded. So E.2 is the way we were and is found on page 26 of your agenda. Debate time for E.2 has been set to 6 minutes. I'm going to recommend a debate time of 4 minutes on the question of whether or not to reconsider E.2. And so as a reminder, so the motion to reconsider, should it pass, basically just opens up E.2 to where it was right before we took the vote. And so it doesn't, the motion to reconsider is not the final vote on E.2. It's just about whether or not we want to basically open E.2 back up. So is there any objection to a debate time of 4 minutes for reconsidering E.2? Time is set at 4 minutes. Tammy, do you wish to speak? And we can go ahead and, oh, no, my moderators already did that. Sorry, never mind. Tammy, do you wish to speak further to reconsidering E.2? Okay. Sorry, I clicked twice.
Thank you. It's clear from post-meeting conversation that at least some people did not understand what they were voting for. Some people thought that it was only a name change, while some thought it had substantive impact on issues of membership non-transferability. And in fact, it is unclear how it does impact the meaning of the Constitution because the amendment does not provide sufficient instruction on making the required changes. Changing the words attending supplement to attending membership is not a simple grammatical change in many cases and requires additional explanatory text to be added in order to not cause internal conflicts. The amendment was ill thought out by not including the full text of required changes, and the body should have the opportunity to consider it with correct knowledge of its impact.
Okay.
I yield.
Thank you. So that was a speech in favor. I think I already answered this parliamentary inquiry, but just in case I didn't, if the motion to reconsider passes, debate time for E.2 is set at 6 minutes. And so that's how much debate time would be remaining. Okay. I'm going to recognize Kevin Black for a speech against reconsideration. And then Ron Oakes for a speech in favor of reconsideration. Kevin?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, ratification of E2 was a great victory to get us away from the very unpopular arrangement of WSFS membership plus attending supplement, which has been very hard to implement and explain, both from a technical standpoint and from a standpoint of trying to bring new members into our society and welcome them. The way E2 was drafted, I agree with Tammy. Substituting WSFS member for supporting member everywhere in the Constitution didn't take into account that the term is used in multiple ways and causes some garbled language and unintended consequences. But fortunately, the language is so garbled and the unintended consequences so ridiculous, contradictory, and paradoxical that those mistakes can be easily recognized and easily ignored by subsequent Worldcons for what they are, scrivener's errors, until those errors can be fixed. If we reconsider now, then we can't fix the problem. We can't get rid of attending supplements for 2 years. So, while I regret the errors, the best thing to do is to vote down reconsideration and move forward, which we can, and just clean up the language and the fly-specking and nitpicking committee later. Thank you. I yield my time.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against reconsideration. So I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor, and then Gary Blogg for a speech against.
Okay. Clearly, because this came up in the 2 years when we have had a record number of items up for consideration, the 2 busiest Worldcon business meeting, WSFS business meeting agendas. And this was a badly written copy-paste, well, not copy-paste, but search and replace submission. None of us actually went through and looked at what this was going to do to the agenda or to the Constitution. It makes a horrible hash. It ruins non-transferability. It disenfranchises every attending member of the Worldcon from being able to vote in site selection, being able to vote for the Hugo Awards. It basically makes an attending membership useless. All it does by doing this is it makes a little bit harder for people to explain the wording of what a WSFS membership means. It makes it harder to explain you are joining the World Science Fiction Society and supporting the convention. It is making it so that you have to explain a new concept instead of a 78-year-old concept to people who are obviously so old.
That is time.
Okay, thank you. So that is time expired for speeches in favor of reconsideration. How much time do we have for speeches against reconsideration, Olav?
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Gary Blogg for a speech against reconsideration.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
The only people who are in favor of WSFS membership and attending supplements are SMOFs and people at these meetings. The average person who attends a Worldcon or other convention will not understand it, and having to explain these terms will make them run away and not wanting to get involved. Supporting virtual, attending nice, simple, easy explanations for memberships. And as my previous against speakers mentioned, we can always have the nitpicking and fly specking committee clean this up and bring us back to next year for more amendments to fix it up, to clean up any errors that people find. I ask for everybody to reject reconsidering.
That is time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, time to speak on reconsideration has elapsed, and so we will, so we still have 4 speeches remaining, 4 people wishing to speak in favor of reconsideration, and 1 person wishing to speak up against, and no other, oh, there was 1 motion to end debate on reconsideration in the pool. So we will go ahead and move to a vote on whether to reconsider E.2. So as a reminder, this is not a vote about what to do with E.2. This is a vote about whether or not to take up E.2 to bring E.2 back in front of us. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on whether or not to reconsider E.2. This does require a majority. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 99 in favor and 29 against, the motion to reconsider E.2 succeeds. And so what is in front of us is E.2. Debate time on E.2 has been set at 6 minutes, and so that is the debate time that we have. We can go ahead and clear the pool for stuff related to reconsideration. So anyone wishing to speak to E.2 can go ahead and submit that. And I'm going to recognize Brian Nisbet for a speech against E.2, and then Kayla Allen after that.
Thank you, Mixed Presiding Officer. Brian Nisbet, he, him. So look, in short, as I've written on Discord, I think I was wrong last week. Been thinking about this all week. It's not necessarily about the wording piece, but I think that we need a better way of doing this. But I don't think ratifying E.2 and making this blunt change is the way of doing it at this point in time. So I am against ratification of this at this point in time. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against E.2. I'm going to recognize Kayla Allen for a motion.
Thank
Kayla Allen.
I have, yes, thank you. I was trying to start the video, but it doesn't want to. All right. Thank you, Mixed Chair. Kayla Allen, she, her. There we go. Thank you. Well, I tried starting it, and I don't know why. Anyway, Mixed Chair, while I recognize the drafting errors are quite significant, there are also very significant consequences to this that will affect a Worldcon in the relatively near future, assuming things go the way we think they will. And actually, we could get into that as whether we should adopt it or not, but I therefore move to create a committee consisting of Kevin Black and Linda Dinneroth and me and such other people as we may need for this to produce better wording that actually accomplishes what was intended to be submitted to the next business meeting whenever that is scheduled. At the moment, the next business meeting is the site selection business meeting, but should Seattle decide to schedule additional meetings, it would come to that meeting instead.
Okay, so the motion has been made to refer to committee to report back to the next scheduled session of the business meeting, which is the site selection business meeting. I do see multiple seconds. Okay. I'm going to recommend that Olaf, how much total time do we still have 4 minutes available?
We have 3 minutes available. Oh, sorry, no, we have 4 minutes available.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will split that time evenly on the motion to refer. And so we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded to refer E.2 to a committee to report back to the next session of the business meeting, which is the in-person site selection business meeting scheduled for August 16th, 13th. It's the Saturday, whichever that is. At the Seattle Convention Center. The 16th, I am being told. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to recognize Alan Bond for a speech against the motion to refer. And then I'm going to recognize Alexia Habel after that for a speech in favor. Alan?
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I speak against this because I believe that even if we sent this to a committee, anything that they brought back to the body would be greater than minor changes and would require 2 years of ratification. So in that sense, I would rather that committee's term be to report next year as opposed to report this year, at which point the initial makers of the motion could be revising it and bring it on their own. Thank you.
Okay, so Alan, before you go away, so are you wishing to make a motion to amend the motion to refer to report back to 2026?
No, because I believe that voting down the committee would and voting down the E2 itself would in effect do that same thing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so that was a speech against the motion to refer. And so I'm going to recognize Alexia Habel for a speech in favor of the motion to refer. And then after that, I will recognize Rick Kowalczyk for a speech against the motion to refer. Alexia?
Hi, Alexia Habel. I am asking everyone to refer to committee because I can state with my accounting background professionally that if we leave things the way they are right now, any convention held in Canada or the US runs the risk of having the new convention be taxed on attending memberships because they will be considered tickets to an event instead of a membership if they are looked at in depth by the various IRS, etc. organizations and could cause a significant financial burden to Worldcons in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of referring to committee. So I'm now going to recognize Rick Kowalczyk for a speech against referring to committee. And then I will recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor of referral after that. Rick Kowalczyk. Rick, I see that you are unmuted in the Zoom, but I cannot hear you saying anything. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give you time to get your audio figured out, and I'm going to recognize Kat Corbetti for a speech against referral of E.2.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Mixed Chair. I think that sending this to a committee to report back at Seattle is not going to fix the very long list of issues that this has created. And it is my personal opinion that it needs to be straight up voted down. If someone wants to come up with a new solution for next year, do that. In fact, I think there's nothing wrong with it, but the way we had things until this was ratified. So please vote down this committee referral. Thank you.
Sorry, that was a speech against referral, and so I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor of referral. And then after that, I have a motion from Joshua Cronengold. Cliff Dunn?
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. So first and foremost, I think that if we send it to committee and the committee is unable to resolve it, we should have at least given them a chance to try and deal with this in a timely manner. And second of all, even if we get greater changes that show up at Seattle, that takes only one more year to fix this, not two, which allows us at least a shot of resolving this mess ahead of Montreal. So I think it's urgent that we deal with this sooner rather than later. And so I support referring to committee to report back to Seattle.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of referral. And so sorry, I got myself slightly out of order. Rick Kowalczyk, if you are still wishing to speak against, and do you think you have your audio sorted out, go ahead and raise your hand and we can recognize you for a speech against. Okay, I don't see Rick raising his hand in the Zoom, so I will go ahead and recognize Joshua Cronengold for a motion.
I've retracted that request, please. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think that got retracted after I had said I was going to call on you. My apologies for that. Okay, so let's see. We've had Olaf, how are we doing on time on the motion to refer?
We have 40 seconds remaining in favor and 45 seconds against.
Okay. I do have two motions to end debate on the motion to refer. So are there seconds on the motions to end on the motion to end debate? Okay, I do see several seconds coming in, so it has been moved and seconded to end debate on the motion to refer. This is this requires a 2/3 vote. And so if this passes, we will move to an immediate vote on the motion to refer to committee. So we can go ahead and oh, and my apologies. So we can go ahead and have the vote open. We do have 6 people still wishing to speak in favor of referral and 4 people wishing to speak against. And so the motion to end debate, as I said, requires a 2/3 vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 103 in favor and 17 against, that is a 2/3 vote. And so the motion to end debate succeeds. And so we will go ahead and move to a vote on the motion to refer. And so this is a motion to refer E.2 to a committee to be composed of Kevin Black, Linda Deneroff, Kayla Allen. Kayla Allen would be chair, and any other members that the chair wishes to appoint. And for this committee to report back to the in-person site selection meeting on August 16th in Seattle at the Seattle Convention Center. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on whether or not to refer E.2. I'm going to give you all 15 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 71 in favor and 73 against, the motion to refer fails. And so E.2 is not referred to committee. Olav, how much time do we have remaining on the underlying E.2 after we take out the time for referral?
We have 55 seconds remaining in favor and 1 minute and 25 seconds remaining against.
Okay. Let's see. I believe we had we had one speech against. And so I'm going to recognize Alexia Habel, if you still wish to speak in favor of E.2, if you can go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom. And then after that, I will recognize Meg McDonald for a speech against E.2. Alexia Habel?
Hi, Alexia Habel. I would like to encourage everyone to vote in favor of E.2 and allow the nitpicking committee to go ahead and fix all of the problems that will come up as a result of this. Thank you.
Okay. So that was a speech in favor of E.2. So I'm going to recognize Meg McDonald for a speech against E.2. Meg McDonald?
Hi, Mixed Chair. Thank you. My name is Meg McDonald. My pronouns are she, her. I'm against this motion and was against it from the start. It has been said it is difficult to explain. With over 1,390 first attending Worldcon members at Glasgow for the first year that this came through, I think we managed to explain it quite well. Moreover, pointing to Alexia's comment before, she listed all of the problems that the ratification of E.2 would bring. I think if we have to consider something that has all of the problems in it, we should be striking it down and considering it more successfully outside of the meeting. Thank you, I yield.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech against E.2. Let me look at this. Okay. I have several motions to end debate on E.2. Is there a second or 3 seconds rather for the motions to end debate? Okay, I do see several seconds. So we do have 1 person still wishing to speak in favor of E.2, 10 people wishing to speak against E.2. We have a few different, 2, 3, 4. I think we have 4 or 5 different motions either to refer to committee for next year or to make a different or to make an amendment to E.2 in the pool. So those are the folks still wishing to speak on E.2. So the motion to end debate requires a 2/3 vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the motion to end debate. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 104 in favor and 27 against. The motion to end debate passes. And so we will move to a vote on E.2. So this is the vote on whether or not to adopt E.2, which is found on page 26 of your agenda. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on whether to adopt E.2. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 31 in favor and 108 against. E.2 fails and will not be added to the Constitution at the end of Seattle. Okay. And so we can go ahead and clear everything from the speaking pool related to E.2. Okay, so we have, okay, so We have a motion from Mara to go ahead and take up F22, which is end the false binary immediately. So the next item before us would be the report from the F.7 committee, except that a motion has been made to take up F.22 immediately. Those wishing to second the motion to take up F.22 immediately should raise their hand in the chat, or sorry, in the Zoom, and I do see we have several seconds. Thank you. So taking up F.22 is a motion to take up items out of order, which requires a 2/3 vote, and is not debatable. So we will move immediately to a vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on whether to take up F.22 immediately. So when the Lumitech is ready, we can go ahead and open up the vote on taking up F.22. And this will require a 2/3 vote. Going to leave it open for about 10 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 74 in favor and 43 against, that is not a 2/3 majority, and so the motion to take up F.22 fails. Take up F.22 immediately fails. Okay, so the next item of business is going to be the report from the F.7 committee. So I believe I'm recognizing Kat Corbetti for that. Yes, I am. Great. Okay.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. As the report states, we recommend a slight rewording to clarify the clarifying motion, and to split it into two separate considerations. The first one being the just enumeration of the existing rights of members collated from disparate sections of the Constitution into one single section for the benefit of everyone and ease of reference. And then after that is considered, to consider separately an added right, the only new item really, which is to allow for online participation in the business meeting to all WSFS members. And this really does limit it to only in case there is a virtual component and there are WSFS members who cannot travel to the Worldcon to be able to take part in matters of governance. But, you know, so the consideration would be F7A first, F7B second as a separate thing.
Okay, thank you. So the report from the F.7 committee is in the Documents tab. So to be clear, so the recommendation from the committee is to substitute F.7 with their proposed amendment. And so the way that we would handle this is that first we would vote on whether or not to, first we'd vote on the amendment by substitution of whether we want to look at the proposed text from the committee rather than the original F.7. Should that amendment by substitution pass, then we would divide the substituted F.7 into its two components as recommended by the committee. However, before we get to that, my understanding is that there is a minority report. So in general, the appointment of a committee implies that the body is primarily interested in the findings of the majority of the committee's members. However, the body may also choose to receive a minority report. Is there any objection to hearing the report from the minority? So you can raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, I do see an objection. And so we will go ahead and move to a vote. So this is undebatable and requires a majority vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on whether or not to receive the minority report. Once the LumiTech has that ready. So this will be a vote of whether to receive the minority report from F.7 for the F.7 committee. It requires a majority vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 89 in favor and 20 against, it passes. And so we will receive the minority report. I'm going to recognize Joshua Cronengold in a second, but to explain how this works. So when we hear the minority report, and unfortunately we don't have the a PDF of that in the documents tab, but I believe we have the text that we can get on the screen. No action can be taken on minority report other than a motion to substitute the minority report for the report of the committee. So that is the action that we could take with the minority report if we choose to do so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Joshua Cronengold for the minority report.
Mixed Chairperson, a minority of the committee agrees on F.7a, but we think that the proposed F.7b is a burden to future Worldcons, and we would instead prefer to allow Worldcons to have all WSFS members be able to vote, but potentially, if they wish to, condition it on attendance rights. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. So that is the minority report. So I'm assuming that you wish to make the motion to substitute the minority report for the report of the committee. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. So the motion has been made to substitute the committee report with the minority report. Is there a second? Or 3 seconds, rather. Okay, I think we have exactly 3 seconds. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to substitute the committee report for the minority report. So to be clear, what will happen is that first we will vote on what the report from the committee that we receive is. So we have the committee report and we have the minority report. So we can choose to substitute the committee report for the minority report, or we can choose to not do that. Whichever way we go, then we will look at whether to adopt the committee report and the recommendations in it. And then if we do that, that's when then we would divide into the two questions. So total debate time for F.7 has been set at 6 minutes. I'm going to recommend a debate time of 2 minutes on whether or not to substitute the committee report for the minority report. Is there any objection to a debate time of 2 minutes for this? Okay, seeing none, debate time is set at 2 minutes. Joshua Cronengold, if you would wish to speak further to your motion to substitute, please raise your hand. Speaker moderators, this can go in the second order speaking pool for right now. Okay, and so if you're wishing to speak on whether or not to substitute the committee report for the minority report, you can go ahead and submit those requests, and I'm going to recognize Joshua Cronengold for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson. So the minorities report is identical to the majorities report in every respect except for replacing F.7c for F.7b. F.7c has several advantages over F.7b. For the first thing, it no longer attempts to the weird thing of attempting to add the rights of WSFS members by modifying the section on attending members. But additionally, it doesn't explicitly make an exception of online membership. It just says that WSFS members have the right of attendance on Worldcon, rather than this whole, if we hold an online meeting, The other big problem there is that if we put conditions on an online meeting, we are discouraging Worldcons from holding online meetings. Thank you. I yield.
That is time.
Okay, so that's time elapsed for speech in favor of substituting the committee report for the minority report. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Mara for a speech against the minority report.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The majority report moves to expand the rights of WSFS members, whatever they're called, so that they all have the right to vote if there is an online business meeting. We did that because that is the time when it would be easiest to extend participation to everyone. We didn't want to jump and force everyone to be involved or to extend the right to everyone right away. But when it is virtual anyway, it is so much easier to extend it to all those people who can't travel for one reason or another and give them all the vote. So I would ask you to take the majority report and at least give the chance for an up or down vote on our proposal. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. Okay, I do a parliamentary inquiry asking for clarification about what we're voting on. So to be clear, this is a motion. So currently we have received the committee report. We have also been offered a minority report. And so now the choice is whether or not we wish to keep the committee report or go with the minority report instead. So basically we have the committee report and the minority report, and we need to decide which one we want to take up and use to as our starting point for the rest of handling F.7. And so this is a motion to substitute the minority report for the majority report. So a speech in favor and a vote in favor is saying that you are in favor of the minority report over the committee report. A speech and a vote against is saying that you want to go with the committee report instead. We do have a request to see if it's possible to get both reports up on the screen. I don't know how quickly Warren would be able to do that. Warren, maybe you could just copy the text of F.7c into that same document so we can look at both. Olav, how much time do we have remaining for speeches against?
10 seconds.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say then that the time has elapsed. And so I'm going to give Warren just a little bit to get both of those on the screen. You may need to zoom out a bit, Warren. Okay. So now we have that up on the screen. So you can see F.7b, that's from the committee report, and you can see F.7c, that's from the minority report. Okay. So time on the question of whether or not to substitute the minority report instead of the committee report has elapsed, and so we will go ahead and move to a vote. This only requires a majority vote. And so to be clear, a vote in favor is saying that you want to go with the minority report as our starting point for the rest of the F.7 discussion. A vote against is saying that you want to go with the committee report for the rest of the F.7 discussion. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on whether or not to substitute the minority report. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 41 in favor and 69 against, the motion to substitute fails. And so we are not replacing the committee report with the minority report. Okay, so the recommendation from the committee report is to substitute F.7 as it is on page 36 of your agenda with the text on the screen that can also be found in the Documents tab. So once again, the question before us right now is not the final question of whether or not to adopt this, but whether or not we would rather go with the text proposed by the committee than the text originally proposed in F.7. So I'm going to recommend a debate time of 2 minutes. So this functions as an amendment by substitution, which has been moved and comes from committee and so does not require a second. And so I'm going to recommend a debate time of 2 minutes for this amendment by substitution as recommended by the committee. Is there any objection to a debate time of 2 minutes? Seeing none, debate time on this amendment by substitution is set at 2 minutes. And so we will go ahead and keep using the second order speaking pool for my speaker moderators. Okay. And so if you are wishing to speak to the amendment by substitution, please go ahead and submit those requests. I do have a parliamentary inquiry. One moment. Well, now I have two. Okay, so I'm going to answer these one first. Okay, so there's a question about whether or not this requires a 2/3 vote. The requirement for a 2/3 vote was only because we were looking at items that were ratifications that had already been passed by the business meeting last year and were up for their second vote. That's only for ratifications. There is no similar requirement for amendments to new constitutional changes, and so it's only a majority vote. I have another parliamentary inquiry. I'm going to recognize Perry and Lurie to make sure I'm clear on what this is a question about.
Yes, Perry and Lurie, she, her. So I am a little confused as to what this does to the right of non-natural persons to vote no preference in site selection.
Okay, let me look. So there are several points in the Constitution that refer to non-natural persons. So for example, 4.3 talks about that non-natural persons, their ballots are considered to be no preference. So I don't believe that either of these language changes would negate 4.3 and the fact that non-natural persons may only vote no preference in site selection. That would be my opinion on the effect of this language. Okay. I'm going to recognize Kat Corbetti for a speech in favor of the amendment by substitution as recommended by the committee. And then if we still have time remaining, I will recognize Laura Miller after that.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. So F7A is the First Amendment. It reiterates the existing rights of members that are already in place. It also codifies the existing practice of allowing WSFS members to submit new business to the meeting, as things have been done. This amendment does not touch any language regarding transferability or anything else. It just puts everybody's rights in one place in one paragraph. The only change made to the last paragraph shown in the proposal is giving it a section number. Would you like me to speak in favor of F7B as well right now, or just F7A? Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't divided them yet, so.
Very well. For F7B, this amendment states that if a Worldcon chooses to allow for online participation, no matter what form that participation may take for the business meeting, that it needs to be open to all WSFS members. This is to democratize the rights of WSFS members everywhere to be able to have a say in what goes on. As it currently stands, this is the only way to have a say in the governance of this society. And I believe that
That
it
is
should
time.
be open to everyone. Thank you very much. I
Thank
yield.
you. Okay, so time in favor has elapsed. I do not have anybody wishing to speak against. And I do have one person wishing to speak in favor. And so I think we will go ahead and move to a vote. So to be clear, what we are voting on now is whether to amend by substitution F.7, and so to replace the proposal, the originally proposed F.7 that you can find on page 36, whether to replace that proposal with this language recommended by the committee. So once again, we are not at the point yet on voting on the final adoption on any of this language. It is what we are considering is whether or not we want to replace the original F7 proposal with the language recommended by the committee. Okay, so since time in favor has elapsed and I don't have anybody wishing to speak against, we can go ahead and open the vote on the amendment by substitution for F7. This requires a majority vote. As a reminder, I'm closing the vote quickly when the number of votes remaining would not change the outcome. And so we can go ahead and close the vote. With 97 in favor and 11 against, the motion to amend by substitution passes. And so the original proposed F.7 is now replaced with the text recommended by the committee. So now that we have this text, the next question is whether or not we want to divide these two questions. And so the recommendation of the committee is to divide them. So first I'm going to add, and so to be clear, dividing would mean that first we would vote on F7A, well, debate and vote on F7A, and then we would look at F7B, and so it would be possible to pass one, but not the other. Is there any objection to dividing the new F7 into F7A and F7B? If you wish to object, please raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, I do see an objection, and so we will go ahead and move to a vote. So the committee has basically already made the motion to divide F7, and so it doesn't require a second, since it comes from committee. So the motion to divide, regardless of what I did during the first meeting, is not debatable, and requires a majority vote. And so once again, we are still not on whether to actually adopt any of this language. We are just deciding whether or not we want to take up F7A and F7B separately, or if we would just like to tackle them all together. This requires a majority vote. And so we can go ahead and open up the vote on whether or not to divide F7 into F7A and F7B as you see on the screen. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 82 in favor and 29 against, the motion to divide F7 passes. So now we are at the point where we will consider F7A first and then F7B. I am going to recommend a total debate time of 4 minutes for each of these items. So 4 minutes for F7A and 4 minutes for F7B. Is there any objection to 4 minutes of debate time for both of these items? 4 minutes each for both of these items. Okay, seeing none, debate time is set at 4 minutes. I'm going to ask the speaker moderators to go ahead and clear the pool for items that have been submitted previously related to F7, because now that we've divided it, those are no longer necessarily relevant. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize Kat Corbetti again for a speech rather, in favor of F7A, and anyone else wishing to speak on F7A should submit those requests.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. As I've said in my previous speeches, all this amendment does is clarify what we can and can't do as WSFS members, what comes with a WSFS membership, what is our role in this society. It is to nominate and vote in the Hugos. It is to nominate for the Hugos in the following year. It is to propose business to the current year's business meeting and to vote in site selection, subject to, of course, site selection fees and so on. It's just the intention of this motion was just to make it very abundantly clear what a WSFS member is, what a WSFS membership does, in particular because people did not like that term as introduced in 2022. And I fully understood what a WSFS member did, but apparently it was difficult to wrangle. And so here it is, easier to wrangle in one place. I yield.
Thank you. So that was a speech in favor of F7A. I'm going to recognize Laura Miller for another speech in favor of F7A, as we don't have anyone who has submitted a request to speak against. So Laura Miller, if you want to go ahead and raise your hand and we can ask you to unmute.
Okay. Thank you, Mixed Chair. I am very much in favor of this. I strongly, I think this will help us with sorting out the situation that we discovered about E.2. And I know that when I was first a supporting member years ago, that I wasn't aware of the fact that I could participate in site selection. And then once I became aware that I could do that, I wasn't aware of how. So I think this is a great idea to put all this in one place, easy to see, better for welcoming new members. And yeah, that's why I like it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of F7A. Still don't have anybody wishing to speak against. I do have, okay, I have a motion to end debate. And there is also a motion to make an amendment after that has been submitted. But so the motion has been made to end debate. Are there folks wishing to second the motion to end debate? Okay, I do see 3 seconds. So what we have in front of us, we don't have anybody wishing to speak in favor or against. We do have one amendment. Is there an objection to moving directly to a vote? Okay, seeing no objection, we will move to a vote on F7A. And so this is a majority. This only requires a majority vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F7A. Okay, it looks like we may have had to reset the voting for some clarification. So to be clear, we are voting on whether or not to adopt F7A. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 95 in favor and 5 against. F7A passes. And so F7A will go to 2026 for ratification. And so the next item that we have is F7B, which is now on the screen. We have set debate time at this for 4 minutes. And so we can go ahead and clear any items related to F7A. And I will recognize Kat Corbetti for a speech on F7B. And anyone else wishing to speak on F7B can submit those requests. Kat Corbetti.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. So F7B is the only one is the introduction of a new right. It is in fact perhaps not introduction of a new right, but it is placing the attendance of the WSFS business meeting, which has to do with the governance of WSFS, onto the WSFS membership rather than the attending supplement, which it is now in the Constitution as it is. The attendance of the business meeting is attached to having an attending membership to the Worldcon. What I'm recommending is that if a Worldcon decides to have a virtual business meeting or a way for WSFS members to participate remotely, to extend that right to them by default, because they have a right in having a say in what's going on in the society. I yield.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of F7B. I'm going to recognize Rich McAllister for a speech against F7B. And then I'm going to recognize Gail Turman for a speech in favor of F7B. So Rich McAllister.
Rich McAllister, he, him. I believe that this is a misconstruction of what WSFS is. I mean, I think people believe that because it's called the World Science Fiction Society, it is somehow different from Worldcon and as a club of all science fiction fans, and it's not. We're only about the Worldcon and the Hugos, but the Hugos are given by the Worldcon. So I think it is best that the business meeting be only attended by the people who are committed to the Worldcon enough to attend it, or for virtual attendance is fine with me, but it's I do not think it's wise to open it up to everyone. That's it.
Mixed Chair, you are on mute.
Sorry. Okay, that was a speech against F7B. I'm going to recognize Gail Turman for a speech in favor of F7B. And then I'm going to recognize Linda Deneroff for a speech against.
Hi, folks. Thank you, Mixed Chair. I'm Gail Turman. My pronouns are she, they. I happen to be the head of virtual for this year's convention. I've looked at the numbers. This year, our platform cost us $25,000, including our live transcription. Any amount of membership under another 5,000 people would probably keep us at about the same price point, meaning that it would only be the poor people who bought a virtual membership for the purpose of attending this meeting that would be out money. It would not cut into the con's profits in a significant way, and it wouldn't. We have basically a fixed cost for this meeting with that many people, so I'm not worried about the financial implications of this. I yield.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of F7B. And I'm going to recognize Linda Deneroff for a speech against F7B. And then I will recognize Chris Hensley for a speech in favor of F7B. Linda Deneroff.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I object to item F7B because it means that someone could simply buy a WSFS membership, not attend the convention either in person or virtually, but just attend the business meeting. That means that changes could be made to this Constitution by people who have no interest in Worldcon itself.
That's time. Thank you. Olaf, how much time do we have remaining for speeches in favor? Do we have time?
We have 20 seconds remaining in favor.
Okay, so I'm going to recognize Chris Hensley for a 20-second speech in favor of F7B.
Thank you, Chris Hensley, he, him. What we do here today affects every single member of the society. As far as possible, every member of the society then should have the right to participate in its governance. Thank you, I yield.
Okay, thank you.
10 seconds left.
We're going to go ahead and say that that's functionally time having elapsed. Okay. So time has elapsed for speeches on F7B. We do still have 4 people wishing to speak in favor and 5 people wishing to speak against, and no other motions or items related to F7B in the pool. So we can go ahead and move to a vote on the adoption of F7B. So this requires a majority vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F7B as shown on the screen. And we can go ahead and close the vote. With 93 in favor and 29 against, F7B passes, and we'll go to 2026 for ratification. Okay, we are at, it is 10:35 Pacific time. And so now that we've taken care and we are of those items and we are left to the rest of our Fs, I'm going to say that this is a good time for us to go on our break. And so will be in recess for 15 minutes and we will reconvene at 10 minutes before the hour. And so we are in recess for 15 minutes. This is your 3-minute warning. We will be reconvening in 3 minutes. Okay, we are at 10 minutes before the hour, and so we will go ahead and get started again. So the first thing we are going to do is set debate times on the remainder of the items in front of us. So I believe Warren's going to go ahead and share his screen. So first of all, as a reminder, we have already set debate times on F9 through F12. So that's 4 minutes for 9 through 11 and 8 minutes for F12. Those were set at the last meeting. And so for the remainder of the items, I am recommending these debate times of 8 minutes for F13, retire NASFIC, for F14, unnecessary PII, personally identifying information, 6 minutes, F15, check for site selection cheating, 6 minutes, F16, quorums, 2 minutes, F17, conversion rights, 4 minutes, F18, res please, 4 minutes, F19, fixed targets, 4 minutes, F20, location, 6 minutes. I'm aware that F22 exists as well. There we go. Yeah, for F22 and the false binary, 6 minutes, and F21 has already been stricken. So is there any objection to my proposed debate times? That's what's on the screen, in addition to 6 minutes for in the false binary. Okay, seeing no objection, debate times are set as described. Okay, so the next item that we would move to would be F9, Hugo Award software source. However, we do have a motion to take up F12 next. So the motion has been made by Emily Bell to take up F12 immediately. Folks wishing to second that motion can raise their hand in the Zoom. As a reminder, we do need 3 seconds for motions. Okay, I see several seconds. So the motion to take up items out of order requires a two-thirds vote and is not debatable. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on moving to taking up F12 immediately. As I said, this will require a 2/3 vote. And so when the LumiTech is ready, we will open the vote on taking up F12 immediately. I'm going to give you all about 10 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 55 in favor and, or sorry, 54 in favor and 44 against. That is not a 2/3 majority. And so the motion to take up F12 immediately does not pass. And so we are going to move to F.9, which is Hugo Award software source, found on page 39 of your agenda. Debate time for this item has been set at 4 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak to F9 can go ahead and submit a request in the speaker pool. And I'm going to recognize, oh, that person's not there. Okay, if there's anybody from the software committee who wishes to speak in favor of this motion, if you can, oh, there you are. Oh, I was searching the wrong thing. Okay, I'm gonna recognize Chris R. for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Chris Rose, he, him. As the chair of the software committee, fellow members Henry Balin and Tammy Coxon to bring in extended software development expertise and Hugo administration experience. We concluded that the original text of the amended motion as proposed in Glasgow made the minimum reasonable changes to the Constitution to achieve the goal of having conventions be able to reuse the gifts that were given to previous conventions in the administration of the Hugos, while still maintaining the ability to be flexible in the face of the world changing in software. We don't think the business meeting moves at a pace that supports developing software requirements. So we believe that this is the right set of changes to the Constitution should they be accepted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of F9. I don't have anybody else yet who wishes to speak in favor or against. So I'm going to recognize Darren Briskman for an amendment. Darren, if you want to go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom and we can unmute you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So Darren Briskman, he, him. I would like to recommend an amendment that the adding to the beginning of each of 374 and 3, or each of these paragraphs, a strong recommendation is made that.
Okay.
There you go.
So the motion is to amend F9 to insert a strong recommendation is made that at the beginning of both paragraphs. Is there well, 3 seconds for this motion. Anyone wishing to second the amendment can use the raise hand function in the Zoom. Okay, I do see several seconds, and so the motion is seconded. Okay, since total debate time on this item is 4 minutes, we will split the time remaining on F9 equally for the amendment. So Olaf, how much total time is that?
2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Okay, so 2 minutes and 40 seconds will be split on both sides of this amendment, and we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. Okay, Darren, do you wish to speak in favor of your amendment? Okay. Go ahead and unmute.
Thank you, Mixed Presiding Officer. It is a great idea for WSFS to give strong recommendations for how Worldcon should operate. Explicitly requiring this sort of exactly which software to use and other pieces is really violating a long history of WSFS providing advice and mark protection and Worldcons executing as they need to. Please vote in favor of this amendment to make this a strong recommendation to help guide Worldcons instead of a directive. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a point of order. I'm going to recognize Don Eastlake for a point of order.
Hi, this is Donald Eastlake. I just wanted to say that this amendment appears to make the result inconsistent because there is a must later in the sentence. And either it's a recommendation or it's a requirement. If the amendment should also strike the word, change the word must later or something like that. That's my point.
Okay, the point of order is well taken, that without changing the word must in the original language, that the amendment becomes incoherent. And so I'm going to rule this amendment out of order because it is not coherent. And so we are back to F.9 as originally proposed. Go ahead and clear request to speak related to the amendment. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. I don't believe, sorry, we had a speech in favor and then we had the amendment. Okay. I don't have anybody wishing to speak against, so I am going to recognize Chris Hensley for a speech in favor of F.9.
Chris Hensley, he, him. Using a well-recognized open source license for software is a well-accepted practice in the industry for ensuring both the security of the software itself, as well as that it is functioning as it claims to function. This amendment does that. Thank you.
Thank you. So that is a speech in favor of F.9. Okay, I'm going to, one moment, sorry, okay. I'm going to recognize Darren Briskman for a speech against.
Thank you, Mix Presiding Officer. There are two things that make this incoherent and reasons to reject. I speak as someone with a long experience working in open source and full support of using open source whenever possible. The Open Source Initiative is an organization that lists types of licenses. There are currently no licenses categorized as both international and popular. So the way this is currently written, there are no licenses that could be used. There are some international licenses, there are some popular licenses. Secondly, those are not official categorizations of the Open Source Initiative. They are merely tags that are administered by the website administrator of OSI in order to make it easier to search through the licenses. I believe that it's a great idea to recommend use of open source. As I earlier stated, I think it's wrong to require it. And the way this is currently written is not possible. There is no software that meets the requirements as currently written here. I urge everyone to vote against this, and perhaps a better recommendation can be brought forth in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was a speech against F.9. Okay, I do have a motion to end debate. Are there seconds to the motion to end debate? Okay, I do see several seconds. The motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. Okay, we still have 5 people wishing to speak in favor of F.9, 1 person wishing to speak against, and I believe 4 people in the pool to make different amendments. Okay, so the motion to end debate requires a 2/3 vote and is neither debatable nor amendable, so we will move to a vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the motion to end debate. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 61 in favor and 47 against. The motion to end debate fails. Olav, how much time do we have remaining on F9?
We have 25 seconds remaining in favor and 15 seconds against.
You said 25 and 15?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for an amendment.
Mixed Chair, thank you very much. I move to amend, but to convert this into a resolution and to change all instances of must to should.
Okay, so is there a second for this amendment? Okay, I do see several seconds. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to amend F.9 to strike all instances of must and insert should, and also to make this a resolution rather than a constitutional change. So that would have the effect also of striking the section titles, the section numbers and titles as well, but that's functionally editorial. And Warren, are you able to change the musts to shoulds? Okay, yeah. So Warren is getting that up on the screen. Okay. So the remaining time,
Warren, there's another must after Hugo Awards, and yeah, I think in both sections, and then
Yep.
another must at the beginning of the next sentence.
Yeah, we also have the license must be categorized in both. Yep. There we go. Okay. So I believe we have about 45 seconds in total remaining on this item. Is there an objection to moving directly to a vote on this amendment? You can use the raise hand in the Zoom if there's an objection. Okay, I do see an objection. Okay, so we're basically at 20 seconds. We'll say 25 seconds of time in favor and against the amendment. Cliff, if you wish to speak further to your amendment, go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn to speak in favor. And then I will recognize Chris R for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Simply put, legislating technical criteria is eternally fraught with difficulties and is often a very, very bad idea. These are good ideas, but I think writing them into the Constitution is fraught with risk, especially if the criteria change down the line.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of the amendment. And so I'm going to recognize Chris R for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. As proposer of the original motion, I see no value in advisory language on this subject. If it's moved to this, I'd rather just vote it down.
Okay, thank you. And that was a speech against the amendment. Okay, I don't have anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the amendment. I'm going to recognize Steve Cooper for a speech against.
All I'll say is one quick thing. We've seen in the past just how dangerous it is to allow language that allows too much interpretation. I prefer the strong motion as we have it originally.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech against. So since we only had 25 seconds on each side for this amendment, time has elapsed for speeches against the amendment, and I don't have anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the amendment. Okay, I do have a parliamentary inquiry, I think. So I'm going to recognize Kate Secor to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking.
Mixed Chair, I just wanted to clarify, if this passes, then these changes no longer go into the Constitution, but only require this year of passage to go wherever it is that they're going, right?
Correct. So if this, so this is an amendment to turn F.9 from a constitutional change into a resolution. So it would no longer be adding language to the Constitution. It would just be a resolution that would go into the resolution rulings of continuing effect that is maintained by the Nitpicking and Fly Specking Committee. And F.9, both sections of it are inserting language, inserting new sections into the Constitution. And so we would just not be inserting those sections. I don't believe we would even have to do any further renumbering if it got turned into a resolution. And yes, because it would, if the amendment passes, become a resolution, it would only require a vote at this year's business meeting. Okay, we are out of time for speeches related to the amendment, to the Dunn amendment. Sorry, I think I've gotten out of the habit of being clear which amendment we're on. Okay. So we will go ahead and move to a vote on the Dunn amendment, which is to change F.9 into a resolution instead of a constitutional change and replace all of the musts with should. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the Dunn amendment to F.9. This requires a majority vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 54 in favor and 69 against, the amendment does not pass. And so we are back to F.9 as originally proposed. And we are out of time on F.9 since we exhausted all the remaining time on that amendment. But as a reminder, subsidiary motions are still allowed when we are out of debate time. It just means that they are no longer debatable. Okay, I am going to recognize, sorry, I'm going to recognize Alan Fleming for a motion. Alan, if you want to go ahead and unmute in the Zoom.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I would like to propose that we refer this to a committee consisting at least of myself, Chris Rose, and any other people you would like to nominate, to refine the language of this, to bring it back to time during the site selection meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to the motion to refer F.9 to committee? Okay, I do see several hands going up, so the motion has been moved and seconded. So this would be a motion made up of Alan Fleming, Chris R., and at least per our new standing rule, at least one other member of the original software committee. What I'm going to say, Chris R., if you object to chairing a software committee again, will you please raise your hand in the Zoom? Okay, seeing that Chris R. has not objected, I'm going to take this, the motion to refer to committee to be chaired by Chris R. And essentially be the software committee again, and have Alan Fleming on it as well. Okay, I have a parliamentary query asking to what extent the time we spend moving to amend a proposal and working out the amendment to a proposal counted against the time for debate. So when we set debate times for an item, that is for all debate and proceedings related to that item. So when we take up an amendment or a motion to refer, the debate time for those subsidiary motions, those secondary motions, comes out of the debate time for the original item. So if we set a total debate time of an item for 8 minutes, and then somebody makes an amendment and we spend 5 minutes on that amendment, then we would have 3 minutes remaining for the underlying proposal after we finish handling the amendment. And then if another item comes up that uses 3 minutes, then we are out of time on the underlying item. We do have a standing rule that if debate time expires and we have not had substantive debate in favor and against the underlying item, then we do add, I believe it's a minute of debate time for that purpose. So our rules do account for that. Okay, so the motion to refer to committee has been moved and seconded. We are out of debate time on this item, and so the motion to refer to committee is not debatable. one moment. Do we have another? Okay, I don't think. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, so a further parliamentary inquiry, if time expended on motions to amend. So the time, yes, the time it takes to amend. So the time it takes to make the motion to amend or to refer also comes out of debate time. Um, Generally speaking, if you are doing a thing, then that takes debate time to do. I will also say that we are generally, and I have instructed the timekeeper this way, fairly generous in terms of like if you're wanting to do a thing and I need to communicate with you to clarify about the thing that you're doing, like we don't take that time out of debate. So if there's, if there's a little bit of back and forth of me clarifying the wording of your amendment or which committee you're wanting to refer it to, we don't take that time out of debate. Okay. They also have a parliamentary inquiry about getting assigned to the committee. So the committee would be chaired by Chris R. and include Alan Fleming and any other members of the original Hugo Software Committee that wish to serve again. And our general practice is that if you wish to serve on the committee, you can contact the chair of the committee or the business meeting staff, and we will forward your interest along. But it is up to the chair of the committee to determine who its members would be. If you wish to require a certain person to be on the committee, whether yourself or somebody else, that would require a motion to amend the referral to add that person's name to the makeup of the committee. Okay, so that should handle that parliamentary inquiry. Okay, so we are on the motion to refer F.9 to committee. And this is not debatable as time for debate has expired. Okay, there is a motion to amend the referral to committee to add Darren Briskman to the committee. Chris R., can you raise the hand if you are willing to say that you will add Darren Briskman to the committee? Okay. So the motion has been made to amend the referral to add Darren Briskman to the committee. Is there a second, or 3 seconds rather? Okay, there are 3 seconds. And so the motion to amend the motion to refer has been moved and seconded. This is still not debatable as we are out of time for debate. So we will. Oh, we have another parliamentary inquiry. Okay. So where we are on F9, so we have the original F9 as proposed. A motion has been made to refer F9 to committee to be made up of Chris R. as the chair, Alan Fleming, and any other members of the Hugo Software Committee that wish to, or the Software Committee rather, who wish to serve again, and anybody else that Chris R. decides to add to the committee. A motion has been made to amend that referral to also add Darren Briskman to committee. So that is what is in the queue for F.9. So currently we are on the motion to amend the referral, and then we would vote on the referral. And then if the referral fails, we would be back to the underlying F.9. Okay, so we are on the motion to amend the motion to refer. It is not debatable as debate time has expired. So we will go ahead and move to a vote and open up the vote on the motion to amend the referral to committee to add Darren Briskman to the list of folks who will be on the committee. And this requires a majority vote. I'm going to give you all just a little bit more time. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. Okay, with 63 in favor and 60 against, the motion to amend passes. And so we are now at the motion to refer as amended. So we are at F.9 to refer, we are at F to refer F.9 to a committee to be chaired by Chris R., and whose membership will consist of Alan Fleming, Darren Briskman, any other members of the software committee who wish to serve again, and anybody else that Chris R. wishes to add. Oh, yes, sorry. My apologies for not stating that. So the motion to, so we have a point of order about the motion to amend. So the motion to amend the referral to committee was made by Cliff Dunn. I thought I had stated that. My apologies. Okay. So we are back to the motion to refer as amended. Time for debate still has elapsed. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the motion to refer F.9 to committee. This requires a majority vote. I'm going to give you all a little bit more time. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 60 in favor and 69 against, the motion to refer fails. And so F.9 is not referred to committee. I believe that we have had debate on both sides of this item because we had Chris R. and Chris Hensley speak in favor. And in addition to the amendment, Darren Briskman spoke against it. So we have had substantive debate on both sides. We still have several amendments still in the pool. And so one moment. Okay. Okay, okay, I'm going to go ahead. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Chris R. for an amendment.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. All the other debate aside, Darren pointed out an error in my original formulation of the amendments. I'd like to move to amend both of these proposals to replace the word both before international with either, and the word and in between international and popular with or, as was my original intent when framing it. I apologize for the error.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is a motion to strike both and insert either, and strike and insert or before and in between international and popular. So the text as amended would read, the license must be categorized as either international or popular in both of the two new sections. I see several seconds, so the motion to amend has been moved and seconded. We are still out of time. And so we will go ahead and move to a vote on the amendment to F.9. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the amendment to F.9. And we can go ahead and close the vote. With 101 in favor and 3 against, the amendment to F.9 passes. We are back to the underlying F.9 as amended. Okay. Okay, so we still have a few amendments in the queue. Those maybe should be retracted. I'm not sure. We still have 5 folks wishing to speak in favor, 1 wishing to speak against. There are several motions to end debate in the queue. Is there any objection to moving immediately to a vote? If so, please raise the hand in Zoom. Okay, there is an objection to moving immediately to a vote. So the previous question, the motion to end debate has been moved. And I have enough people making the motion in the pool that it's also been seconded. We have 3 seconds in the pool. So the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. And so this requires a 2/3 vote. And so we can go ahead and open up the vote on the motion to end debate. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 111 in favor and 10 against, the motion to end debate passes. Okay, and so we are going to move to a vote on F.9 as amended. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on F.9 as amended. This requires a majority vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. And as a reminder, I'm only closing the vote quickly when the result is so lopsided that the remaining votes would not change the result. Okay, so we have 106 in favor and 22 against, and so F.9 as amended passes. Okay. And so the next item in front of us is F.10, site selection concordance, found on page 39 of your agenda. This is also proposed by the software committee. And so debate time on this item has been set to 4 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak to it can submit a request, and I will recognize Chris R. as the chair of the committee for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Chris R. here again, speaking from the software committee. When the committee was originally struck, we were asked to examine both site selection software and Hugo voting and nominating requirements. We concluded that site selection has significantly different social requirements, and so did not elect to make any statements about the software itself, only observing that it is useful to have agreement early on so that the hosting Worldcon can make decisions about how they choose to implement electronic site selection with enough runway to actually do the work. And this provides for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was a speech in favor of F.10. I do not have anybody who has submitted a request to speak or any other items related to F.10. And so we can go ahead and move to a vote. And so we can open the vote on the adoption of F.10. This is a majority vote. This is site selection concordance on page 39 of your agenda. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 106 in favor and 6 against, F.10 site selection concordance passes and will go to 2026 for ratification. I feel like I maybe didn't say that thing on F9, but it's also true on F9. Okay, the next item in front of us is F11, mandated Hugo admin reports, found on page 40 of your agenda. This comes from the Hugo Administration Process Committee. And debate time on this item was set at 4 minutes. If there is anybody wishing to speak on F11, mandated Hugo admin reports, can submit a request in the pool. If there is anybody from that committee who wishes to speak to it, please go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom, because I don't see that the chair is here. Okay, I'm going to recognize Nicholas White for a speech in favor. You can go ahead and raise your hand into Zoom, and we can unmute you. Nicholas, I believe you've been asked. I'm showing that you're unmuted, but I'm not hearing. Oh, nope, you're muted again. Okay, I see that Nicholas White is unmuted, but I am not hearing anything. So I think he's traveling, so there might be tech difficulties. Okay. So I'm going to move. Okay, so we do have an amendment. So I'm going to recognize, or I'm sorry, we do have speeches in favor. So first, I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon for a speech in favor.
Hello, Tammy Coxon, she, her. This is just good practice for Hugo administrators to do. Nicholas has already been doing this for several years whenever he's been the administrator. Opens up, it avoids, any ambiguity about why the Hugo administrators made the decisions that they made. This is a great amendment for increasing transparency.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. Don't have anybody wishing to speak against. Okay, I'm going to recognize, oh, I have a parliamentary inquiry, one moment. Okay, so I have a parliamentary inquiry. Would this amendment prohibit the administrator from announcing disqualifications? Okay, I'm not sure I'm entirely clear on what that question is asking, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize Jerry Sullivan for this parliamentary inquiry. Jerry, are you specifically inquiring about prohibit the administrator from announcing disqualifications before the report is published?
Yes, last year they announced before the voting was closed.
Right.
What
Okay.
reasons for disqualifications are people who decline nomination. And this is just talking about, after the Worldcon, and I want to know if it has any impact on what they can do sooner.
Right. So let me just reread it to make sure I'm confident. So no, my understanding of this language is that no, it would not prohibit the administrator from announcing a disqualification or other information earlier. It just mandates that they must announce it after when the reports are published. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, we don't have anybody wishing to speak against, and we don't have anybody wishing to speak in favor. I do have several motions to end debate on F11. And I do have one person who does wish to make an amendment to F11. Is there a second or multiple seconds to the motion to end debate? Okay, I do see several seconds. So is there, let me make sure we have, okay. Is there any objection to moving immediately to a vote on F11? Okay, seeing none, we will move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F11 mandated Hugo admin reports, which is on the screen and on page 40 of your agenda. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 117 in favor and 1 against. F.11 passes. and we'll go to 2026 for ratification. Okay, the next item ahead of us is F12, the Speculative Poetry Hugo Award, which can be found on page 40 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set at 8 minutes. So if you are wishing to speak to F12, please go ahead and submit your request to speak. And I'm going to recognize Holly Walrath as one of the makers of the motion for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mix Chair. I put forth this proposal along with a group of speculative poets and fans. We think that a Hugo Award for poetry is overdue. Speculative poetry has been a part of the SFF scene from its inception and arguably precedes other forms like short fiction or novels. It has a rich history dating back to the earliest literature. In 2025, Seattle Worldcon had its first speculative poetry Hugo category. It showed that there was interest in having an award be permanent. Over 30 speculative poetry publications and publications who also don't publish poetry have co-signed, and a list is on our website, poetryhugo.com. Today, many pro markets publish speculative poetry, and so we'd like to consider adding it to the Hugos.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Farah Mendelson for a speech against, and then I'm going to recognize Lynn Sargent for a speech in favor. Farah, if you can go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom, we can ask you to unmute.
I'm on a very noisy train, so I apologize.
Yeah, Farah, I'm sorry. There is enough background noise that I cannot understand you. My apologies. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to recognize somebody else. Let's see. I am going to recognize Rafe Richards for a speech against, and then Lynn Sargent for a speech in favor.
Mixed chairperson, thank you. Rafe Richards, pronouns he, him. I'll be very blunt and to the point. We have too many Hugo categories already. I might, in isolation, support a Hugo for poetry, but not until at least one other Hugo Award category is removed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that was a speech against. So before I recognize Lynn Sargent for a speech in favor, I have a couple inquiries that have come in. So first of all, I have a parliamentary inquiry about what about a poem that's embedded in another work? And so that would be a judgment call that would be, it's not my job to rule on what's eligible for a Hugo. That is the job of the Hugo administrator. And so that would be up to a Hugo administrator to determine. Let's see. And if folks have opinions on that particular question, that is germane to debate if folks wish to speak to that in their speeches in favor or against. Okay, we have a request for information from this year's Hugo administrator, that's what that's called. About sorry, I clicked away. About the number of individuals or members who nominated in this category. If somebody on this year's Hugo administration team is present and would like to answer that question, you can raise your hand in the chat, or if one of my staff wants to copy and paste. Okay, there we go. Okay, I can't answer that question. It was just going to be whether we could get it from a Hugo admin or from my staff copying and pasting first. So the nominating data that was released in the announcement is that there were 219 nominating ballots cast for 266 nominees, with the finalists range from 11 to 26 nominations. So that is the answer to the information about the nominating data for this year. Okay. I have another parliamentary inquiry about scheduling of the meeting. Can I confirm that the site selection business meeting will occur prior to the Hugo results this year and that there is no business meeting scheduled afterwards? That is correct. So the site selection meeting is scheduled for, you know what, okay, the Hugo Award ceremony is Saturday night. Somebody in chat, tell me if I'm correct. Or I can just go look it up on the page, I guess. Okay, correct. Okay. Yes, the Hugo Award ceremony, when the results of the Hugo Awards will be announced, is on Saturday evening. The business meeting, the in-person business meeting is scheduled for Saturday morning, because that is because site selection closes on Friday evening. And so there is not an additional session of the business meeting scheduled after the Hugo Awards or the Hugo Award ceremony. Okay. I believe so that, okay, that handles all of the questions that have been submitted. Okay, so I am going to recognize Lynn Sargent for a speech in favor. And then after that, I will recognize Linda Robinette for a speech against. So.
Thank you, mixed chairperson. Lynn Sargent, they, them pronouns. So I'm part of this, I'm a member of this committee. And I simply don't think that there are too many works on the Hugo ballot is a really good objection to this being here. As Holly stated, poetry is fundamental to the work that we do here. We've had overwhelming support from the community in favor of this initiative. People have in fact thought that it was a gross oversight of the Hugos that they don't include poetry. As we've been seeing in different statistics, the 16% of the membership did nominate poetry, and that was actually more than best fan artist, best professional artist, and best editor long form. So, you know, simply there's too many on the list. Like, poetry is as worthy as any of the other things that are on here, and that should be a reason to include it. Thank you. I rest.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize Linda Robinette for a speech against F.12. And then I'm going to recognize Marie Brennan for a speech in favor.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I can't see me, so I don't know if I said put on
I
video,
don't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay, the deal is, this came up. I had no idea even where to find the works to read the works preliminary to nominating. So then I looked, there was a few publications. I didn't know whether to order those publications. Nothing was in the library. Then the nominations came out. So the only one in the library was Calypso, because it actually wasn't. And so I ended up ordering that and enjoyed it. But I think I have more of a question about poetry. I read Calypso. I don't know much about poetry, I admit. Nothing rhymed. I figured there was an internal iambic or pentameter to it. So did read like poetry. But as far as I'm concerned, I am so confused about the topic that did that make me a good voter in this class? Thank you.
Right, thank you. That was a speech against F.12. So I'm going to recognize Marie Brennan for a speech in favor. And then I'm going to recognize Perry-Ann Lurie for a speech against.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mixed Chair. Marie Brennan, she, her. In the last year or so, I have seen how formal recognition for poetry like this Special Hugo and the new Nebula category has increased the awareness of and the interest in poetry among my fellow readers and writers. Adding this category will actively strengthen the role of poetry in speculative fiction. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of F.12. So I'm going to recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech against, and then Brandon O'Brien for a speech in favor. Perry Ann Lurie. Perry Ann, I see that you are unmuted in the Zoom, but I am not hearing you.
There we go. Okay, sorry.
Yep,
Harry
I
and
can hear
Lurie,
you now.
she, her. Okay, I had the mute on the other thing. While I'm not necessarily opposed to adding a poetry Hugo, we should not be adding any new Hugo category after a partial year's trial. We should at least have 2 years of data before we add something.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. So I'm going to recognize Brandon O'Brien for a speech in favor. Before I do so, Olaf, can we have a time check, please?
Sorry, it took me a moment to unmute. We have 1 minute and 55 seconds remaining in favor and 2 minutes and 30 seconds against.
Okay, thank you. So I'm recognizing Brandon O'Brien for a speech in favor, and then I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon for a speech against. Brandon O'Brien?
Hello. Thank you, Mixed Chair. Brandon O'Brien, pronouns he, they. I am the poet laureate of this year's Worldcon. I believe the work that the Seattle Committee and current Hugo admins have done to recognize poetry this year proves it out that judging and counting the category is not a significant labor for staff, nor is reading and assessing it for fans. Making this permanent gives fandom the opportunity to value an art form that has been a large portion of genre history since antiquity, recognize the contributions of writers whose majority output is poetry, and favor the many outlets where poetry is the majority content, and reinforce that there are no greater or lesser forms of text in our great genre. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. So I do have a request to report on the population of the speaker pool. So we have 6 people wishing to speak in favor of F.12. We have another 6 people wishing to speak against F.12. We have 2 folks wishing to make subsidiary motions in the pool, as well as a motion to end debate. Okay, I have another parliamentary inquiry about would a song, i.e. poetry set to music, qualify. Once again, that would be a ruling for the Hugo administrator to make. I mean, I will say that the general practice of Hugo administrators has been to go with the will of the nominators unless there's very clear rules sort of against what the will of the nominators are. So if the nominators are nominating poem or songs in a best poem category, the Hugo administrators would likely factor that in. Okay. And also the discussion in the agenda does refer to song lyrics. So the intention of the proposal does appear to include song lyrics, which would also presumably be taken into account by Hugo administrators. Okay. I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon for a speech in favor, or sorry, a speech against.
Tammy Coxon, she, her. Speaking as a Hugo administrator, while I'm not necessarily opposed to adding a poetry Hugo, this is premature. We shouldn't consider doing this until the long list for this year's Hugos has been released. Raw nominating numbers are insufficient to determine the viability of a category. Length of the long lists, other details that come out in that data are equally important, if not more important. So I would encourage us to do whatever is constitutionally necessary to move this to next year, just to defer consideration of it to next year's agenda.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. I'm going to answer the sort of implied parliamentary inquiry, which is that as this is the first year that this has been submitted, the sort of easiest way to bring it up for consideration next year would be to defeat it outright and have it resubmitted next year. Nothing precludes it from being resubmitted next year if it's voted down this year. Other things like referring it to a committee to report back next year would also have the same effect. Okay. Okay, I have several motions to end debate that are in the pool. So are there seconds to the motion to end debate? Okay, I do see several seconds. And so the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. So the population of the speaker pool is largely unchanged, but we have 7 people still wishing to speak in favor, 5 people still wishing to speak against, and it looks like 2 different, 1 motion to refer and 1 motion to amend. Okay. Is there any objection to moving to a vote on F.12? If so, raise the hand in the Zoom. Okay, I do see objections. Okay, so the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. Olaf, can you give me a time check, please?
We have 1 minute and 15 seconds remaining in favor and 2 minutes remaining against.
Okay, so there is more than a minute of total debate time remaining, and so it is in order to, the motion to end debate is in order. Okay, so we can go ahead and open the vote on the motion to end debate on F.12. This requires a 2/3 vote. I'm going to give you just a little bit more time. We can go ahead and close the vote. With 82 in favor and 37 against, that is a 2/3 majority, barely. And so the motion to end debate passes. And so we will move to a vote on the adoption of F.12. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F.12. This requires a majority vote. This is F.12 Speculative Poetry Hugo Award, found on page 40 of your agenda. I'm going to give you all about 15 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 74 in favor and 62 against, F.12 passes, and so will be sent on to 2026 for ratification. Okay, go ahead and clear everything related to F.12 from the speaking pool. Okay, the next item in front of us is F.13, Retire NASFIC, found on page 41 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set at 8 minutes. Let's see. So anybody wishing to speak on it can submit a request to speak. I'm going to recognize Lisa Hertel as the maker of the motion for a speech in favor.
I'm going to make this fast because it's been a long day for everyone. Basically, everyone I've talked to who's run an ASFIC in recent years says it has not done what they expected. It's not brought in local fandom. It's not been brought in any pros. It's not done well. And it certainly does not belong in an increasingly international group. It's very Americentric. I'm sorry I had to bring this forward this year, but this really had to be voted on at 2 conventions in North America. So I believe I laid out very coherent arguments, myself and my group, and I think we're not going to get a lot of debate, I hope, on this. Thank you.
Great. So that was a speech in favor of F.13. I'm going to recognize Dawn Eastlake for a speech against F.13. And I'm going to then recognize, Brian Nisbet for a speech in favor of F.13. So, Dawn Eastlake.
Hi, it's Donald Eastlake. I'll be brief. I just don't see any particular reason to take it out of the WSFS Constitution right now. People don't have to bid for an ASFIC. If nobody bids, there isn't one. It's very simple. This is a thing which some people have found useful. People have bid for. They've held conventions. People have attended them. I'm not quite sure what the problem is with it. If there were enough NASFICs that there was a momentum for a continuing annual thing, I'm sure I'd have absolutely no problem in releasing it. But as it is, it only happens when the Worldcon is overseas, which has been gradually growing and is now around 40% of the time, averaged over a reasonably large window. So I just don't see the harm of leaving it there.
Okay. Thank you. That is a speech against F.13. So I'm going to recognize Brian Nisbet for a speech in favor of F.13, and then David Guan for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Presiding Officer. So it feels strange to say this is a European, but I'm a huge fan of North America having a national convention. Go long. We have a Eurocon in Europe. It doesn't need to be under WSFS. And I think actually the phrase the Worldcon is overseas is a huge part of what I'm thinking here. The Worldcon should never be overseas from, it either should be overseas from everywhere or nowhere. And I think that very existence of the fact that Americentric point of view of, well, it's somewhere else is the problem here. Have a national convention, have an amazing time. It doesn't need to be under WSFS. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of F.13. I'm going to recognize David Guan for a speech against. And then I will be recognizing Dave Wallace for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Me personally, as an American, I don't see where the issue is presenting, and I do appreciate the increase in the international conventions, but please recall that historically, the Worldcon started in the US and continued that way for about the first 10, if I'm remembering the long list correctly. But there's no need to take action to take this out of the Constitution, short of movement within North America to put up something regular like Eurocon. I yield.
Thank you. So that is a speech against F.13. So I'm going to recognize Dave Wallace for a speech in favor of F.13. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak against. And so after that, I will recognize Patrick Malloy for a speech in favor of F.13. David Wallace or Dave Wallace?
Yes, thanks. I think that a lot of the impetus behind this came out of the motion at the Chengdu convention that said, hey, there should be an Asian convention, and WSFS should run that in the years when it's not in Asia. And we voted that down, but I think they did have a strong argument that we should either be doing that everywhere or nowhere. And particularly if NASFIC has become harder and harder to run as a viable convention, having it in the Constitution basically says, you know, WSFS is really a U.S. organization, and the rest of the world just sort of tags along. And I think that does say something to the rest of the world that we probably shouldn't be saying if we really want to be a Worldcon. And people are still free to organize. If we take it out, people are still free to organize something that they may call an ASFIC, that they can have it every year instead of just when Worldcon is not in the North America. But it doesn't have to be run by WSFS. And I think that that is a very strong argument. So I agree that we should go ahead and pass this.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. We do have somebody now wishing to speak against. So I'm going to recognize Sean Mead for a speech against. And then it'll still be Patrick Malloy for a speech in favor.
Hi, thank you. I've been to 3 NASFICs. I think they're very useful. I think Worldcon is in a very brittle position, has been for some time. And I think if we cut out NASFICs, that's going to be to the detriment of Worldcon. Most of the Worldcon members come from the US. And I think without that continuing tendon, that stretch, that connection back and forth in those years when it's not physically present, I think it's going to damage the long-term viability of the Worldcon. Yield.
Okay, thank you. And that was a speech against F.13. So I'm going to recognize Patrick Malloy for a speech in favor of F.13. And then I will be recognizing Tammy Coxon for a speech in favor if I don't have another speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Although I have attended and enjoyed multiple NASFICs over the years, my first one back in 1979, I've always thought it strange that WSFS is essentially sanctioning a competitor to its own Worldcon. I'm not sure how overseas conventions feel about that, about having a sanctioned competitor. And I would be just fine with having as one of the previous speakers said, having a national convention or North American convention, but I don't think WSFS should continue to be sanctioning that.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of F.13. Still don't have anybody wishing to speak against. So I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon for a speech in favor. But before that, can we please get a time check?
We have 40 seconds remaining in favor and 1 minute and 45 seconds remaining against.
Okay, thank you. I do have a point of order. Let me look at this. Okay. Okay, so I have a point of order about there being okay, the point of order is well taken. So that the point of order from Cliff Dunn, that when there are amendments in the queue, they should be recognized if there's not also a speech against. And thank you for that. I just got confused on where we were in the order of things. Okay, so since we don't have anybody wishing to speak against, before I recognize Tammy Coxon, I'm going to recognize, let's see, Gary Blogg for an amendment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I want to strike the entire paragraph of further moved that upon the ratification of the changes in the first section of this motion to direct the Mark Protection Committee to take the necessary actions to abandon the NASFIC service mark. While I am reluctantly going to be voting for this, I'm sad to see NASFICs go. I do believe we should protect at least the service mark for a while. just in case we choose to bring it back in a few years, and also possibly to protect previous NASFIC. So on that level, I'll defer to Warren Buff, who is a lawyer who can comment on that aspect of it. Thank you.
Okay, so this is an amendment to F.13 to strike the further moved paragraph about the Mark Protection Committee and the service marks. I do see several seconds. Okay, so the motion to amend has been moved and seconded. So we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. Olav, how much time do we have remaining on F.13?
Total of 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay, let's go ahead and split 2 minutes equally on each side. So 1 minute on each side. Sorry, split 2 minutes. Gary, do you wish to speak further to your amendment? If so, you can raise the hand. Okay.
No, I don't wish to speak. I already said it.
Okay. So let's see. I don't yet have anyone wishing to speak against the amendment. And so I'm going to recognize Chris R. for a speech in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris R. He, him. I agree with Gary that retaining the mark for at least the range of time where we can justifiably do so under trademark law is advisable on the off chance that the business meeting chooses to reconsider in the future, or we can choose to hand off the mark to an interested party going forward. I think we should adopt this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that is a speech in favor of the amendment. I still don't have anybody wishing to speak against. And so I will recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I would just add to the prior that I think holding the marks for a few years, even if we absolutely did abandon them in the end, is advisable simply to avoid somebody jumping in without our agreement and running a similarly named convention, because that could lead to all sorts of brand confusion and other problems that would be not great for us to have. Let's just imagine what happens if Fox Day decides he wants to run NASFIC as soon as we drop the mark.
Okay, thank you.
That is time.
Okay, so time in favor of the amendment has elapsed. We still don't have anybody wishing to speak against. I do have 2 motions to end debate on the amendment, but since we don't have anybody wishing to speak on the amendment, we will just move to a vote. And so we can open the vote on the blog amendment to F.12, or sorry, F.13 rather, to remove the instruction about abandoning the NASFIC service marks. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 94 in favor and 111 against. The motion to
that is 11 against, not 111.
I don't know why I keep adding extra hundreds in front of things. I've done that, I think, every meeting. Sorry, 94 in favor and 11 against. The motion to amend passes, and so the paragraph that starts further removed about abandoning the NASFIC service marks is struck from F.13. So we had 2 minutes and 25 seconds remaining before the amendment, and so we used a minute of that. Okay, I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon for a speech in favor of F.13.
Tammy Coxon, she, her. I was the chair of the 2014 NASFIC in Detroit. We had a great time. But like Brian Nisbet said, this should not be under WSFS jurisdiction. On top of that, as compared to 2014, now North American convention running fandom is really struggling. And I would rather see that con running energy turn to supporting Worldcons wherever they are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, time in favor of F.13 has elapsed. We do not have anybody wishing to speak against F.13. We have several motions to end debate in the queue. And we have 8 people still wishing to speak in favor. So since time in favor has elapsed and we don't have anybody wishing to speak against, we will go ahead and move to a vote. And so we can open the vote on the adoption of F.13 as amended. This requires a majority vote. This is F.13 retired NASFIC, found on page 41. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 109 in favor and 14 against, F.13 as amended passes, and will go on to 2026 for ratification. Okay. The next item that we have is F.14, unnecessary PII, which is found on page 44 of your agenda. Debate time on this item was set to 6 minutes. And so I'm going to recognize Alan Bond as the maker of the motion for a speech in favor of F.14, and anybody else wishing to speak to it can go ahead and submit your request.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Alan Bond, they, them. I speak to get rid of unnecessary PII for a number of reasons. One, addresses are not a good marker of personhood whatsoever. There are many people that are unhoused in this world, and there are many people whose domiciles don't include addresses that are recognizable by other people's cultures. It speaks to part 2 as well. This requirement is intended to disenfranchise people from cultures that are dissimilar from our own, and is therefore abhorrent in this Constitution. Part 3 is that it makes administering WSFS much more difficult, and this PII is a liability that we would be better off not having. Thank you. I cede my time.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of F.14. Okay, I'm going to recognize Don Eastlake for a speech against. And then I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon.
Hi, this is Donald Eastlake. I'd like to make a couple of points. One is that I really think pretty much everybody can find a postal address. It doesn't say residence address. You know, it could be if they don't want their residence address, they can use a address via a place of work if they're employed, or via some place that will hold mail for them or anything like that. So I don't think it's really a substantial barrier for anybody. I'd also like to point out that the enforcement of this would have caused Chengdu not to be selected. There were 1,591 ballots for Chengdu that did not have a postal address, even though traditionally that had always been required. And that was most people thought that the Constitution meant before this was added as an explicit requirement. I would point out that the DISCON 2 business meeting in 2021 voted that that was in fact the requirement, and that the amendment to explicitly insert postal address was passed at the Chengdu business meeting, even though they wouldn't have been selected if that had been there, and ratified in Glasgow. So 3 business meetings out of the last 4 have voted in favor of requiring a postal address. It may be that this is only a weak protection against cheating. Maybe it only affects, makes it easier to catch certain kinds of crude cheating, but nevertheless, it does help in the cases of such crude cheating. And this requirement should definitely be retained in the Constitution.
Okay, thank you. And that was a speech against F.14. I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon.
Move to amend using the language that I submitted earlier to the business meeting. Be easier if we get that on the screen before I walk through it.
I believe Warren has that, so give him a second to get that up. Oh, look, it's right there.
I have a few amendments. So first off, I would like to retain the possibility of keeping people's addresses, not require it, but make it optional. So propose to strike a telephone number space and replace it with telephone number and postal address space. Right now, most people aren't sending out print publications, but this would allow them the option of doing so. And then there's just some language that's a holdover from the WSFS definition, WSFS members. So right now in 4.4.2, strike the word the supporting WSFS membership rate and change it to just WSFS membership rate, because supporting is irrelevant now. And then in 4.5.1, this would allow, right now we only say, even if an address is, this would say, even if an address was collected, then it could not be passed along to the, or a phone number, it could not be passed along to the Worldcon. And so it would strike name and email address and replace it with personally identifiable information. So any information that was collected as part of 4.4.1 would be able to be passed along to the Worldcon.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to amend F.14, as you see on the screen. Anyone wishing to say, okay, I do see 3 seconds. And so the motion to amend is moved and seconded. So Olav, how much time do we have in total remaining on F14?
2.5 minutes.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and split 2 minutes for the amendment. So a minute in favor and a minute against. Anybody wishing to speak to the amendment can go ahead and submit that, and we'll use the second order speaking rule or speaking pool. Do you wish to speak to your amendment further? Okay. So let's see. Okay. I'm going to recognize Kendall Bullen for a speech in favor of the Coxon amendment to F.14. And then I will recognize Alan Fleming for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
I want to speak in favor of the Coxon amendment. The first change is exactly what I was thinking when I was rereading this of putting the may include, and then also, and the second one's obviously just clean up from that whole supporting to WSFS membership stuff. And I especially want to point out or focus on the last change. Instead of this section 451 doesn't need to enumerate every single thing. It's just the information that we're getting, right? It doesn't need to name an email, and then later on we want to put postal address back, so we have to change this one back and all that kind of stuff. Like there's, it should just be general as Tammy Coxon has written it. So thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And that was a speech in favor of F.14. So I do have a parliamentary inquiry about if the presentation of amendments or motions count against debate time. And so I believe this is a question about if the presentation of the amendment counts against time in favor of the amendment. So it's complicated. So, I mean, in general, yes, the amount of time it takes to present the item. So if you just say, I move to refer to committee, like, honestly, that probably doesn't come out of debate at all because it was so quick to say. A lot of times motions to amend or motions to refer are prefaced with a speech on the underlying motion. And so those preface speeches come out of debate on the underlying motion. The time spent presenting the motion that is related specifically to the motion does come out of the debate time, generally speaking, for the subsidiary motion. However, this is complicated by the fact that you're allowed to explain why you want to do the thing before I ask for a second so that people know whether or not to second it. So this is one of those areas where we tend to be fairly generous on how we account for the debate time because we want to make sure that people have the ability to communicate the information that they need to communicate to the body in order for folks to know whether or not they want to second the motion that is made. If that does not fully answer your parliamentary inquiry, Cliff Dunn, can you please raise the hand so that I can recognize you for further clarification? Okay, not seeing that. I will go ahead and recognize Alan Fleming for a speech against. the motion, or sorry, the amendment.
Hi there, everyone. I am both against the amendment, but also the motion as a whole. It starts with unnecessary PII and then carries on to mandate the inclusion of an awful lot of personally identifiable information. As a data privacy professional, I see that this is problematic both under CCPA in California, the GDPR, many other states' privacy acts. We should not be collecting PII, if at all possible, because
that is time.
Right. Thank you. So time to speak against the motion to amend has elapsed. Okay. I have several folks wishing to make a motion to end debate on the Coxon Amendment. Not quite enough that it's fully seconded. So if those wishing to second the motion to end debate, okay. The motion to end debate on the Coxon Amendment has been moved and seconded. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the Coxon Amendment. I have one person wishing to speak against, and one subsidiary motion that I believe is to divide. Is there an objection to moving directly to a vote on the Coxon Amendment? If so, raise the hand in Zoom. Okay, seeing no objection, we'll go ahead and move immediately to a vote on the Coxon Amendment. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of the Coxon Amendment to F.14, which is on the screen. This requires a majority vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 79 in favor and 31 against, the amendment passes. And so F.14 is amended as on the screen. Warren is going to have to do a little bit of formatting trickery to make it clear what all is being added here. So we're just going to understand that and watch him do that live because that's super entertaining. Olav, how much time is remaining on the underlying F.14?
40 seconds.
Okay. We did have substantive debate in favor and against the item, so we don't need to add debate time just for that purpose per our standing rules. Okay. I'm going to recognize Rosemary Parks for a speech in favor of F.14. Oh, never mind. I believe I'm going to recognize Rosemary Parks for a speech, and we'll find out if it's in favor or against.
Hey, this is a speech against the amendment now that it has been amended.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the thing that I'd like to point out is we don't take any action to confirm.
Okay. How much time? Gonna go ahead and give you like 15 seconds to complete your speech, Rosemary. That's okay.
Thank you. We don't take any action to confirm the information, which renders it useless, irrelevant for verifying any kind of personhood.
Okay. Thank you. How much time do we have remaining for speeches in favor of F.14, Olaf?
35 seconds.
Okay. Okay, I do have multiple requests in the queue to end debate. So the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. I have 3 people still wishing to speak in favor of F.14, 1 person wishing to speak against, and 1 person wishing to make an additional amendment. So is there an objection? Oh, right, we are under a minute. That's correct. So this is a motion to suspend the rules and end debate since we are under a minute of debate time. So it requires the same 2/3 vote. Is there an objection to moving directly to a vote on F.14? If so, raise the hand in Zoom. Okay, I do see a hand. Okay, so we will go ahead and move to a vote on the motion to suspend the rules and end debate. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on ending debate on F.14. This requires a 2/3 vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 111 in favor and 10 against, the motion to end debate passes. And so we will move to a vote on F.14 as amended. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F.14, unnecessary PII, as amended. And the amended text is up on the screen. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 100 in favor and 25 against. F.14 as amended passes. And we'll go on to 2026 for ratification. Okay, let's look at where we are. I lost my script. There it is. Okay, so the next item ahead of us is F.15, check for site selection cheating, which can be found on page 45 of your agenda. Debate time for this item has been set at 6 minutes. And so we can go ahead and clear any requests related to F.14 out of the speaking pool. And anybody wishing to speak on F.15 can go ahead and submit those requests. I'm going to recognize okay, I believe Dawn Eastlake is one of the makers of the motion who is here. And so Dawn, if you wish to speak in favor, okay, yep, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Dawn Eastlake for a speech in favor.
This is Donald Eastlake. So I'm not going to say much of it isn't already in the discussion that's present there, but people seem to do things that in the past have been concluded to be cheating, in which action has been taken about. It happened in connection with Hugo ballots. It's happened. It may have happened in connection with site selection ballots, but nothing was really done about it in the case of the election of Chengdu. In particular, among other things, all of the proposers of this motion can testify that we were on the site selection staff, or Tim Sachel was actually the head. At DISCON 2, we saw the ballots, and there was block after block of 20 or 24 or so voters purporting to be from Chengdu with sequentially issued email addresses. Chinese email addresses are kind of different from Western ones. Western ones typically are unique and have names in them. Many Chinese ISPs issue numeric or alphanumeric fixed length kinds of user IDs. And these were email addresses which counted up in a subfield. Now, all these arrived in an enormous avalanche of emailed PDFs at the last minute. And basically, if you allow people to vote, not people present, but people to submit ballots remotely one way or the other at the very last minute, then there's really no chance to check even for crude cheating, and no chance to decide what to do if you believe there is or is a reasonable chance, or a reasonable person would conclude that there was cheating. So it's not necessarily that convenient to require this earlier submission. And of course, there's never a problem with people who submit their ballots in person, but an earlier submission for stuff that's submitted by some form of mail or courier or whatever is really necessary if you want to have any protection, even against relatively crude cheating. And there were over 1,000 of these questionable ballots, and they are the reason that Chengdu won the site selection. So I urge people to vote in favor of this, so we will have some protection against this sort of thing in the future.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech.
Jesse, you've gone on mute.
Thank you. I don't know why I keep getting muted. Okay. That was a speech in favor of F.15. I have several high priority items that have been submitted. So first, I'm going to recognize Tammy Coxon for a parliamentary inquiry.
Hello, thank you. So I had questions about how this interacts with electronic voting. When sites have agreed to have electronic voting, we've been enacting those courtesy of 4.4.2, which talks about electronic signatures. But do these ballots count as the equivalent of mail-in ballots or as the equivalent of at-con ballots? Because that will really determine how those, what the limitations on electronic voting would be. And I will note that this may weigh on the definition of at the current Worldcon, which we agreed for the purposes of this business meeting is not limited to the 5-day period of the actual in-person event. I yield.
Okay. Thank you. I believe that I'm trying to remember where it is in here. So based on the text of the discussion, my understanding is that the intention of the motion or of the proposal is that electronic votes would be considered mail-in ballots under this provision. However, so I'm going to be clear right now, I'm not ruling this as a parliamentary inquiry. My opinion as the presiding officer is that I'm not sure it's clear. If I had to pick one or the other, it would be that electronic votes would count as mail-in under this proposal. But absent a ruling from the business meeting or clear text of the amendment, I think it would be the authority of the administrating Worldcon, per whichever clause in the Constitution it is that gives them authority to do things, to determine. I am going to recognize Don Eastlake as one of the makers of the motion for additional insight into this request for information.
Thank you. This makes no change in the first sentence, which seems to be about what mail means. But I think the second sentence is clear that however if it's not submitted in person by the person voting, like in person is a pretty clear thing, I think, then it has to be received 15 days before the close of site selection ballot. That second sentence, the new text, says nothing about how it's received. It could be by postal mail, it could be by email, it could be some system of electronic voting. But the idea is it has to be received in enough time for the site selection staff to have some chance to at least catch crude cases of cheating. That was the idea and the motivation.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, so sorry, I got myself confused because of how the question was phrased. And so yeah, upon reading it again, yeah, so the text is quite clear that it's not saying that mail-in ballots received later are no preference. It's saying that ballots that are not submitted in person before that 15 days are considered no preference. And so that would definitely include electronic votes. I just had to look at it from the correct angle. Okay. So that addresses that parliamentary inquiry. I have a couple other high priority items that have been submitted. So one moment. Okay, so I have a point of order about the speech on F-15 and whether it is crosses the line of making assertions or claims that are not in order. And I will say that I have told my lawyer, deputy presiding officer, to jump in if he feels that any debate on this proposal crosses that line, and he did not do so. And so I don't think that the debate crossed a line. Okay, I have several parliamentary inquiries that are debate. I will remind the body that if you have questions about whether or not the amendment, a proposal, is well formed, and if you think that there are specific scenarios that may or may not be possible under the phrasing of a proposal, that's debate. That is debate either in favor or against the proposal about what you think the effects of the proposal will be. So I have a parliamentary inquiry from Linda Pierce, which is debate. So I'm going to ask the moderators to clear that out. And I have a parliamentary inquiry from Gail Turman that is the same. And so I'm going to ask the moderators to clear that out. Okay. I have several other parliamentary inquiries that have been submitted, which are related to not F.15, but our schedule in general. And so I'm going to reserve those parliamentary inquiries to handle after we take up F.15, as they are not germane to the item in front of us. Okay. So we have had a speech in favor of F.15. And so I'm going to recognize Laura Miller for a speech against F.15.
Hello, Laura Miller, she, her. I'm hesitant to pass this because I feel like it is putting up roadblocks, possibly in the way of our larger worldwide membership to participate in site selection. And regardless of whether you're going to Worldcon or it affects virtual Worldcon, it affects Hugo's, obviously. And anyway, I feel like this may possibly puts up some roadblocks in our worldwide participation. So that's why I'm hesitant to pass this, at least as it is currently worded. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that was a speech against F.15. There are several motions to end debate in the pool. And so the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. There is nobody still wishing to speak in favor of F.15. There are 8 people wishing to speak against. And there are, I believe, a couple amendments and one referral to committee in the pool. Okay. Is there any objection to moving to a vote on F.15? If so, you can raise the hand in Zoom. Okay, there is an objection. Okay, so the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded, and so we can go ahead and open the vote on the motion to end debate. This requires a 2/3 vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. Okay, with 98 in favor and 14 against, the motion to end debate passes. And so we will move to a vote on the adoption of F.15. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F.15. Check for site selection cheating on page 45 of your agenda. This requires a majority vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 39 in favor and 82 against. F.15 check for site selection cheating fails and is not adopted. Okay, I have several parliamentary inquiries relating to the scheduling of this meeting and future meetings. So this is the final online business meeting that has been scheduled. There is an in-person business meeting scheduled for August 16th where we will take up the results of site selection. At that meeting, things like after we dispense with the site selection portion, which we are required to handle, things like a motion to adjourn sine die would be in order. That is the motion to adjourn without day, meaning that the meeting is done and will not reconvene at a later point. We will not be, so just like last year at Glasgow, if we had run out of time for our in-person meetings, we would not have added an additional meeting in the evening of the last day. That is not our practice. Our practice is not to amend the Worldcon schedule to add additional times. We have the time that we have been given. And so long as we dispense with all special and general orders, that is the items that we are required to take up, then it is in order to end the meeting at that point. Related to that, I do have a motion in the queue from Brian Nisbet, and so I will recognize Brian Nisbet for a motion.
Thank you, Mix Chair, Presiding Officer. Yeah, at this point, I motion to postpone all remaining proposals indefinitely.
With or without debate?
Sorry, without debate.
Okay, so this is a motion to suspend the rules and postpone indefinitely without debate. F.16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 22. There's a second. You can raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, I do see several seconds. So the motion to suspend the rules and postpone indefinitely has been seconded. Because this is a motion to suspend the rules, it is neither debatable nor amendable, and so we will move immediately to a vote. This requires a 2/3 vote, and so to be clear, if this motion passes, all of the remaining items would be postponed indefinitely. If this motion does not pass, those items would still be in front of us, and it would be the job of the site selection business meeting and the attendees thereat to determine how to dispense with the business ahead of us. Okay, so we can go ahead and move to a vote on the motion to suspend the rules and postpone indefinitely all remaining items. And this will require a 2/3 vote to pass. Okay, I'm going to give folks just a little bit more time. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. Okay, with 73 in favor and 53 against, the motion, that's not a 2/3 majority, and so the motion to suspend the rules does not pass. Okay, we are out of time for today's meeting, and so these remaining items are still in front of us, and it will be the job of the site selection business meeting to determine how to address those items. If we can go ahead and clear the queue just in case anything comes up in the last couple minutes. Okay, so that concludes the time that we have for the online business meetings that have been scheduled. I want to, we'll do the full sort of thinking and everything at the final meeting. But I do want to extend a special thanks to, there's a lot of my staff that will not be in Seattle. And of course, I don't have a list of who those folks are, but I wish to extend thanks to all of the business meeting staff for the hard work that they have put in on this year's meeting, especially to our Lumi technicians, Kirk and Adam, and to Michelle, our Lumi rep. I also want to thank the 3Play Captioning for their live captioning services. And then the very last thing, because I know that there have been some complaints about this. Oh, I do have a point of order. Sorry. So I have a point of order about if another meeting can be scheduled. It is not, like, the business meeting does not have the authority to instruct the Worldcon about how to set its schedule. We will have an in-person meeting at Seattle. That's the site selection meeting. And it will be up to the folks there to determine how they wish to handle the rest of the items that are in front of us. But that is, we don't have the ability to tell them what to do. So the dog just doesn't want to come over. I was going to show you all the dog, but she's refusing. She's asleep and apparently doesn't want to come. So, sorry about that. I do have an instruction in my chat that if you have concerns about the scheduling of the business meeting, you can email chair@seattlein2025.org. But with that, we are adjourned until the site selection business meeting on August 16th. And I will see folks then. Thank you.